You're standing on the edge of a perfect stone circle its mouth, gaping like the yawning portal to another world. Below, darkness stretches 150 feet straight down, walls so smooth and precise they look carved by gods, not humans. What ancient force shaped this shaft before memory itself faded? Brace yourself. You're about to descend into a pre-flood enigma that defies every rule of history. They came looking for caves. What they found was something nobody could explain. In the summer of 2008, a pair of amateur spelunkers from a nearby Ural's village set out at dawn, backpacks loaded with headlamps, rope, and a couple of thermoses of strong black tea. They'd heard rumors from shepherds of a low-up pitched hum echoing across the ridge, a sound nobody could quite place. Was it wind in a crevice? An underground spring reverberating through limestone? Curiosity outweighed caution, and by mid-morning they reached a moss-clad ledge where the forest fell away into a cleft of raw stone. One step closer, it hit them. The cleft wasn't jagged. It formed a flawless circle, 6 yards across, pressed so precisely into the bedrock it seemed impossible. They trained their headlamps over the rim and saw walls glistening with condensation, but no stalactites, no broken rubble, no signs of nature's random fury. This was purposeful, crafted. They exchanged wide-eyed glances. "Do you see this?" One whispered, voice hitching. The other nodded, voice lost. They knew they had to document it. The first photographs came out grainy, but unmistakable. A perfect aperture marbled in pale gray limestone, its edge ringed by a lip so uniform it looked turned on an immense lathe. Back in the village, they showed their shots to local rangers and elderly miners who had spent decades tunneling through this very stone. None recalled anything like no ancient mine, no natural sinkhole, no abandoned Soviet project. Some shook their heads, others muttered of dragons and old gods. Within days, word spread to regional caving clubs and archaeology hobbyists across Russia. A weekend later, a small team of enthusiasts clambered up the ragged trail. They hauled in portable lighting rigs, surveying lasers scrounged from construction sites, and enough camera gear to fill a van. Their arrival felt like a secret revealed. They worked in hushed tones, mapping the circle's circumference, lowering measuring tapes into the yawning void. The shaft's lip was smooth and cool to the touch holder than any living memory, they all agreed, as if carved before time kept records. The laser rangefinder clicked at 152 feet, no bottom in sight. Late that afternoon, someone rigged a GoPro to a 200-foot fiber cable and sent it down. The footage transmitted in jerky bursts, stone walls shining wet under LED glare, rock blocks stacked one atop another with millimeter-perfect seams. And just before the camera lost signal in the Blacknessa narrow ledge receding into darkness like a forgotten corridor, the group stared at the screen in stunned silence. One of them broke it. "My grandfather was in the Gulag mines. He swore he saw walls built by men, but nothing this precise." News outlets caught wind. A local newspaper ran a 2-page spread with the headline, "Dragon's Throat, Mystery Shaft Found in Urals." Tourists and curiosity seekers flocked to the nearest train station, though few had the grit to tackle the final mile on foot. A pale Russian academic dispatched a graduate student on a shoestring budget. He arrived armed with notebooks and trembling excitement, determined to record local lore, superstitions of vanished tribes, whispers of the last flood, even stories of a Soviet team that vanished in the 1960s. He scribbled furiously in his journal under the flickering lamplight of a creaky guest house. Within weeks, the first scientific report appeared online, drafted in broken English, footnoted with local cave surveys and geological charts. It stated flatly, "No known natural process can produce a cylindrical shaft of this depth and precision in limestone without signs of tool marks or engineering lines." The statement rippled through message boards, from Reddit to niche archaeological forums, igniting fierce debates. Some dismissed it as a hoax. Others clamored for more data. Satellite imagery enthusiasts pored over Google Earth, squinting at the coordinates, only to find dense forest shading any hint of the opening. It felt like the forest itself was swallowing the secret. Meanwhile, the amateur crew organized a second expedition, this time backed by a crowdfunding website. They raised enough rubles to hire a professional winch and a compact drilling rig. On a crisp September morning, journalists lined the trail, expecting a grand unveiling. But what they witnessed was more subdued. Cavers attaching safety harnesses, engineers calibrating sensors, then a single rope disappearing into silence. Cameras rolled as the first expert diver slipped down that rope, each foot lowering him past the neat blocks, into a chill so deep he took off his gloves by mistake and watched small waves of pain ripple across his fingers. He called up through the radio, "It's endless. It keeps going. I'm at 200 feet and still no bottom." That night, lantern-alight conversations around a roaring bonfire grew conspiratorial. Some locals swore they'd felt tremors when the drill bore mere inches into the shaft's side, like the rock itself was resistant, as if alive. Others reported the heavy press of dread, a sensation of being watched from below. 2 engineers refused to descend a second time. One muttered of hearing voices echo in the rope's sheath. His colleague insisted those were just wind flutes in a hidden cavern, but both stayed above ground thereafter. In the months that followed, specialists in geology, engineering, and even acoustics trickled in. They measured magnetic anomalies. They fired seismic pings that returned odd echoes. They sampled drip water for isotopic analysis. Every probe added new puzzles. The isotopic ratios suggested the water seeping through the stone had been trapped for tens of thousands of years long before even the last ice age. The magnetic data showed local compass needles spinning as though repelled by an unknown force. And the seismic pings hinted at voids branching off at right angles exactly 90 degrees, forming a grid that disappeared into the earth. A twist came when a military-grade drone, designed for cave rescues, was parachuted in. It carried compact sonar and infrared cameras, crawling along the walls after a 100-foot drop. Its images scrolled in real time on laptops, straight limestone corridors at precise intervals, recesses lined with stone slab benches, and an ice-choked pool far below that shimmered like quicksilver. But before the drone could descend further, radio contact cut out. Attempts to re-establish the link failed. The drone floated at 180 feet, lights flickering, until its batteries died and its last ping froze on the screen. Despite every scientific instrument, the shaft yielded only questions. Who wielded the chisels that shaped that perfect ring? How did they lower massive blocks without leaving debris? Why create an underground cylinder and not carve horizontally like all other tunnels? And most vexing of all, what lay at its terminus? Locals began referring to it as the Black Spiral, whispering tales of things that moved just beyond the light's reach. A stray dog once approached the rim at twilight and skidded back, hackles raised, yelping at the silence below. Hunters who dared pee near the edge spoke of sudden gusts of wind that smelled of damp stone and something older like the breath of the earth itself. Pressure mounted for official recognition. Russia's Institute of Archaeology dispatched a seasoned professor, flanked by a team equipped with explosives for controlled rock testing and ground-penetrating radar. Yet, in the field, they refused to even try. The site was declared off-limits, pending national security classification, an unusual move for a geological curiosity. Rumors swirled of KGB memos citing strategic interest, of photo negatives seized and sealed. The professor, once outspoken, returned silent, declining interviews. His colleagues speculated. Did they find artifacts too sensitive to share? Or was the shaft simply too inconvenient to allow public access? Today, the discovery narrative remains in flux. Amateur explorers still trek to that mossy ledge, pausing to imagine the hands that carved those blocks, ponder the fate of the first cavers, and wonder whether the shaft's secrets will ever see the light. Online, A cadre of independent researchers pores over leaked maps, blurry photos, and second-hand testimony patchworking, the story like archaeologists of rumor and myth. Some believe that photographs taken in harsh sunlight show hidden symbols etched near the lip characters resembling ancient Sumerian cuneiform or runic alphabets. Others insist those marks are simply lichen patterns playing tricks with shadow and light. In dusty libraries, a handful of cryptozoologists pore over old Soviet reports of underground giant stall figures spotted through boreholes, described as stone-skinned and silent. These reports lack hard evidence, but have an eerie resonance when read beside the stories of the drone's last ping, or the caver who heard his name whispered in the dark. They ask, might Karahora have been built to seal something away? A library of knowledge? A prison for an ancient race? Or a gateway that floods of time have sealed? As the discovery narrative unfolds, each retelling adds another layer. An engineer's silent resignation, a shepherd's tale of lights at midnight, a defector's claim of hidden chambers full of strange artifacts. Every expedition returns with more questions than answers, but the core truth remains. In that perfect circle carved into the Ural bedrock lies a doorway to our past stone that refuses to yield its story easily. It stands as a testament to human ingenuity long lost, or perhaps to something more alien, more profound than our history books acknowledge. And so the discovery continues. Each new visitor feels the same thrill flicker in the chest as the first pair did that dawn in 2008. Step to the rim, peer into the abyss, and imagine the world before our world, the builders, the rituals, the mighty hands that carved a circle into the earth so precise it still stops time. What will the next probe reveal? What voices, what echoes, what chapters of a pre-flood saga remain hidden just beyond our reach? Only the righteous few, daring enough to descend, will know, and they may never return the same. They called it the dragon's throat because it gapes from the earth like a wound in the mountainside. But this wound isn't raw geology, it's something else entirely. To understand why Karahora is unlike any natural cave, we have to start with the stone that surrounds it. The Urals are no ordinary range. They're the planet's ancient spine, formed more than 300 million years ago when colliding tectonic plates thrust up layers of sediment, magma, and mineral veins. Over eons, glaciers carved the flanks, rivers etched deep valleys, and forests cloaked the slopes in green. Yet, amidst all this weathered grandeur, the limestone bedrock here stands out as a sentinel from a bygone era, dense, uniform, and notoriously hard to erode. Limestone forms in shallow seas, layer upon layer of shells, corals, and microscopic skeletons compressed over millions of years. The Ural limestone is particularly fine-grained, with veins of quartz running like hairline fractures through its pale gray mass. You can see the subtle ripple-sentient wave marks frozen in place. You can feel the cold hardness under your fingertips. It's the kind of rock that demands respect. Blast it with explosives, and it fractures unpredictably. Leave it to water, and it yields only after tens of thousands of years. Thus, an opening this perfect should be impossible. Most natural shafts or sinkholes in limestone called cenotes or dolins form when groundwater leaches out the calcium, creating caverns that eventually collapse under their own weight. The collapse leaves jagged edges and rubble piles, a half-moon crater festooned with stalactites and stalagmites in various states of growth. But Karahora's rim is pristine, a flawless circle without a single broken shard. The walls are vertical, not sloping inward as nature dictates. There's no collapsed debris at the base, nothing to show that rock ever gave way. If erosion carved this, it defied every rule of karst geology. The journey to the shaft crosses a tapestry of glade and thorn, birch groves giving way to rocky outcrops. During spring thaw, tiny streams crisscross these ledges, carving miniature gullies. Subtle variations in the stone's hardness cause some patches to crumble into talus slopes, while others jut out in squat pillars. Yet none of these veins of weakness touches the shaft's perimeter. There's no fault line here, No subterranean river lurking that might have pried open the opening. Geologists have scoured the immediate radius with ground-penetrating radar and seismic surveys. There's not even a hint of an underground stream eventually forming a sinkhole. Instead, the limestone is as solid here as in the vast quarry a mile upriver where miners still drill for marble slabs. Walk the ridgeline at dawn, and you'll see how the sun washes across the pale cliffs in golden light, except where the shaft yawns black. Its shadow swallows a swath of sunlight, as if a hole in reality swallowed the day. Moss and lichen cling to the stone just beyond the rim, but inside the circle there's nothing green, no algae, no plants, no life. It's as if carving the shaft severed the rock's memory of seasons. The walls remain sterile and smooth, untouched by spores or moisture-borne seeds. This sterility contrasts sharply with the living cliff face, a stone's throw away, where ferns sprout in every crack and mushrooms fruit in spring. Samples taken from the walls reveal a glassy sheen in places, as if the limestone were burnished by friction, yet there's no passage wide enough for boulders to have tumbled through. No abrasion marks, no tool striations, no lopsided rock fractures. Under magnification, petrologists found microscopic scars that suggest polishing by an unknown agent, nothing like the action of water or sandpaper, but closer to fine rasping, uniformly applied. Even modern stony cutting machinery struggles to achieve a finish this flawless. And yet, here it is, carved millennia ago, in a remote ridge with no evidence of metal tools. Beyond the shaft, the terrain tells its own story. Belts of quartzite outcrops, bands of phyllite glimmering underfoot, and veins of rusty iron ore, hinting at ancient hydrothermal activity. The region's known for small cave networks rifts where groundwater seep through fissures, sometimes revealing crystal pockets or tiny caverns full of bats. But none of these natural caves ever displays vertical walls of engineered exactness. They curve, they branch unpredictably, they bulge where less resistant rock gave way. Karatahora shows geometric discipline, perfect circle, parallel walls, and then nothing. No branching at the surface, no hint of lateral tunnels, just a drop into darkness. During winter, snow blankets the ledges in soft white drifts. To approach the rim, then, is to hear only the crunch of boots and the distant rasp of icy wind. Animals avoid the area. Wolves skirt the ledges, and birds wheel overhead but will not perch on the lip. Locals speculate the shaft radiates cold far fiercer than the -30 Fahrenheit air, as if a pocket of primeval ice lies deep within. Thermographic cameras show a consistent cold plume rising from the Holia column of sub-zero air that hugs the walls, swirling in patterns too regular to be mere drafts. In summer, the effect reverses. Condensation collects 5 degrees cooler near the rim than on adjacent rock faces, suggesting an underground coolness maintained year-round. The surrounding watershed drains into 2 river systems, yet none feeds any subterranean river beneath the shaft. Dyes injected into surface springs emerge hours later in distant rivers, never near Karatahora. Speleologists can't trace any underground water flow into the shaft's interior. They've lowered moisture sensors to 100 feet and found relative humidity spiking to near saturation, but no trickle of water, just humidity-feeding condensation that drips from unseen crevices. Some speculate that the shaft taps into an ancient aquifer sealed off during the last glaciation, its water pressure too weak to form streams but strong enough to saturate the air. Others reckon that humidity owes more to the shaft's sealed origin, a chamber cut when water tables were higher, now left to exude trapped moisture. On satellite scans, the ground around Karatahora shows no sinkhole depression or circular fracturing typical of karst features. Instead, it sits on a level bench of bedrock, an artificial plateau in microcosm like someone cut away surrounding rock to highlight the circle. From above, the clearing appears oddly square, as if loggers or surveyors once carved a rough rectangle around the site, but historical aerial photos from the 1950s show no logging activity here. The trees stood thick and untouched then, the forest's edge brushing against the cliff lip. Only after 2008 did loggers thin the trees to allow access. Yet those cuts follow the same straight lines, something previous generations never did. Perhaps the most baffling geological detail lies in the bedding planes. Limestone forms in horizontal strata, layers stacked over time. Erosion often exposes these layers at different angles, creating stair-step sequences along slopes. But the shaft penetrates the strata vertically, cutting clean through layer after layer without following their natural plane. It's like slicing a layer cake from top to bottom, with a perfect cylinder that ignores icing lines. Conventional quarrying always respects bedding planes. Even rudimentary pit mines follow the easier fracture lines. Whoever carved Karahora ignored those weaknesses and imposed their own geometry on the rock. Geologists argue that no collapse or water erosion could produce such a feature. They often stand at the rim with arms outstretched, imagining natural forces chiseling perfect stone blocks into place. They shake their heads, unable to reconcile this polished precision with geological time. One senior geologist, their voice, hushed, speculated that if nature couldn't do it, only intelligence could. She noted that even in karst regions famous for spectacular caves, every natural chamber shows the hand of water's random artistry. Here, randomness is conspicuously absent. Some theorists propose unusual geological events. A volcanic vent plugged by limestone, later cenote collapse. But there's no basalt intrusion, no volcanic glass, no thermal alteration of the limestone. Magnetic readings show no heat-altered rock signatures, and the region's volcanic history lies tens of miles away under younger basalt flows. If anything, Karahora sits at the intersection of two fault lines running perpendicular, an unusual spot for fracturing, perhaps explaining why rock is weaker there. But weak rock fractures, it doesn't polish itself into a perfect cylinder. Even the entrance slope rising to the rim defies local topography. The shaft sits on a slight rise, not the valley below. If erosion formed it, we'd expect a low point where water pooled or collapsed inward. Instead, the builders seem to have chosen a perch, perhaps for visibility or ritual significance. The plateau offers a panoramic view, north into endless pine forest, east toward distant peaks, south to the mining town smokestacks, yet the shaft's purpose remains hidden underground. In the end, the geological setting tells a story of contradiction. An ancient, weather-resistant limestone, scoured by time in every direction except here, where stone stands untouched, polished, and vertically precise. A remote ridge where nature shapes randomness. Yet this shaft defies randomness entirely. Only intelligence, only deliberate carving, could account for its form. It belongs neither to karst processes nor chance collapse. Karahora sits as a solitary testament to an engineering feat beyond the geologic forces that formed the very mountains around it. And so scientists leave their instruments at the rim, lasers humming, seismic plates recording, drones perched on rock like metallic birds, and step back into the moss and lichen. They consult their data on laptops by flurries of snow or lady summer rain, then pack up and vanish into the forest. The stone remains, colder, darker, and as enigmatic as the unknown hands that shaped it. In the geological record of the Urals, Karahora stands alone, a perfect circle carved in ancient limestone, vertical walls slicing through hundreds of feet of sedimentary history, and a boundary between what nature can achieve and what intelligence demands. Below, the shaft waits. The stone doesn't grow old. It doesn't crumble. It simply holds its secret, its polished walls daring us to believe that beneath these mountains lies a story older than memory etched in stone by a people or power that understood the earth's bones far better than we do today. The walls of Karahora rise before you like the interior of a colossal monolith, each grizzled block fitting so precisely that the seams vanish into shadow. Step closer and run your hand along the limestone, cool, unyielding, with barely a millimeter's gap between blocks. From a distance, the shaft appears as a simple cylinder sunk into the earth, but up close, it reveals a level of craftsmanship that baffles every engineer who studies it. The opening itself measures almost exactly 6 yards across, Surveyors with laser calipers circled the rim a dozen times, each pass returning the same diameter 18 reals feet, point blank. Beneath the lip, the walls descend in a perfect vertical line, unbroken by natural faulting or ledges. No tapering, no widening, a uniform tunnel that slices straight through the hill. It's not sloped like a mine shaft or curved like a lava tube. This is geometry, writ in stone, as if an invisible architect imposed Euclid's principles directly into the mountain. Look at the blocks for a moment. Most weigh an estimated 30 to 50 tons, each roughly the mass of a small house. Yet every one is rectangular, with edges so straight you'd think a modern CNC machine made them. There are no chisel marks or pockmarks from pickaxes. Instead, petrologists find what they describe as microstriations, consistent with a tool of unknown hardness harder than iron, gentler than diamond. Some hypothesize that an abrasive slurry, perhaps a suspension of crushed quartz, was used to grind the surfaces. Others suggest ceramic tooling advanced enough to rival 21st century precision. Either way, no known Bronze Age or Iron Age technology could fashion these blocks. Even more astonishing is the fit. Stand inside and gazing up, you'll see nothing but smooth limestone, unbroken by mortar joints. Geologists swabbed the seams and found only trace minerals from the local bedrock, no binding agents, resins, or lime mortar. The blocks hold together solely by their weight and the snugness of their seams. In warmer climates, natural thermal expansion would crack such joints. Here, temperature swings from -40°F to +80°F have not budged them by even a fraction of an inch. Every block's face is polished to a soft sheen. Under a headlamp, you'll catch the faint reflection of stone upon stone, as if the shaft were honed by water, flowing for centuries, but water can't account for the straight, vertical tracks of polish that run millimeters apart. Imagine hundreds of years of minute, uniform abrasion. Who or what kept the polishing instrument aligned this precisely over such vast spans of rock? No doubt, the original builders left no journals. Their methods are lost, if they ever were recorded at all. The walls are segmented into courses approximately 3 feet high. Every 7 or 8 courses, you'll notice a faint horizontal linea bed joint where blocks of slightly different thickness were laid. But these joints aren't the weak points you'd expect. Geologists measured shear strength across joints and found no difference between these and the untouched limestone. It's as if the builders coaxed the stone's internal grain to bond across the seams with the same strength as a single block. A closer look reveals occasional petroglyphs carved into the margins of blocks, almost imperceptible at first, but discernible under angled light. Strange symbols, half circles, parallel lines, and cruciform shapes. Some researchers connect these to Proto-Sumerian glyphs. Others see echoes of runic or even pre-Indus Valley scripts. The glyphs are too eroded to decipher fully, but their presence suggests the shaft held ritual significance. Why carve glyphs in a place no one would live or even spend daylight hours? The answer lies deeper literally and metaphorically within the shaft's secrets. Approach the drip line about 12 feet down, where condensation first appears, and you'll find small notches cut into the seams. They're barely half an inch wide, spaced roughly every 3 feet. Explorers rigged laser scanners to count them, running vertically on opposite walls, offset like stair roses. What purpose? Some say they served as anchor points for scaffolding during construction. But if you needed scaffolding, why carve out the entire cylinder first? Others argue these notches were part of an acoustic system designed to direct sound waves in and out a megaphone of stone, amplifying voices from deep below. Tests showed whispers at 150 feet could be heard clearly at the rim if the speaker faced a notch. Whether that was incidental or intentional remains a matter of hot debate. Set your light lower, still around 30 feet down, and you'll see the first slight enlargement, a narrow ledge knifing into the walls, about 6 inches wide. It runs uninterrupted around the circle, forming a nearly invisible shelf. For centuries, it was dismissed as a flaw, until drone footage revealed that every 6 courses, this ledge appears again, perfectly aligned across the shaft's height. It's too precise to be random. Could it have served as a footpath for ritual descent? Pilgrims inching downward, pausing at each platform for ceremonies? Or slots for secret wiring if wiring existed in some ancient form, or even a system to lower objects on pulleys while the workers remained out of sight? The lighting conditions inside the shaft are another marvel. With no natural opening below, light vanishes around 20 feet in. Yet explorers discovered small niches carved into the walls at equal intervals, containing fossil blue mineral deposits. Analysis identified these as traces of a luminescent algae no longer found above ground. Some microphotographs show encysted spores preserved and still capable of glowing when moistened. Imagine an underground corridor studded with bioluminescent nodules, guiding the way down deeper than any torch could safely reach. If true, the builders harnessed biology as well as stone. It's a level of interdisciplinary engineering that humbles modern science. At roughly 75 feet down, the shaft narrows slightly, a subtle taper of a few inches in diameter. Surveyors flagged this as an attention point, a demarcation where the builders shifted from broad public access to a more controlled inner sanctum. The taper is so smooth, so gradual, that only precise measurement reveals it. No stone left its place in error. Every block was custom cut to maintain the perfect interior profile. Below that taper, the walls shed moisture more rapidly, water slides off, and drip stains trace immaculate vertical lines that look like tears frozen in stone. Patterns emerge in the block layout. If you count courses and columns, you'll note that each ring of blocks is offset by a fraction of an inch, creating a slight spiral when viewed from below. It's imperceptible at the rim, but drone scans map the spiral with uncanny accuracy. Some theorists see this as a symbolic spiral of life or a practical means to funnel debris or fluids downward. Others liken it to helical gears, functional, mechanical elements lost to history. Regardless, the result is the same. Karahora's interior is not a simple tube, but a spiraling shaft, winding its way deeper into the unknown. Few have reached beyond 100 feet. Below that, the temperature drops several degrees, condensation floods the ledges, and the walls hum with a resonant frequency that vibrates through metal. Explorers lowered a tuning fork, calibrated to concert pitch. At 120 feet, the fork's note sustained itself longer than in any normal cave, as if the walls gave it strength. Was this deliberate acoustic design meant to imbue the shaft with a sacred resonance, or an unintended byproduct of uniform stone architecture? The question echoes through headphones and drives many to give up and scramble back to the daylight. Set against all these marvels are the unmistakable signs of age. The limestone shows microerosion from wind-driven particles long ago, faint striations perpendicular to the shaft's axis. Chemical analysis of the dripwater's mineral content suggests that some sections haven't seen fresh moisture in over 15,000 years. The glyphs are worn nearly smooth in places, as if pilgrims once traced them by torchlight, their fingers softening the edges over centuries. The interior holds memory, of rituals forgotten, of technologies lost, and of the anonymous builders whose legacy is this perfect cylinder of stone. Karahora's architecture stands at the intersection of geometry, biology, acoustics, and geology. Each feature dimension, block fit, finish, luminescent niches, acoustic notches, spiraling walls points to an integrated design philosophy far beyond simple mining or quarrying. There's intention in every inch, a message written in stone for those bold enough to descend. We may never fully decode that message, but standing at the rim, gazing down the flawless shaft, you feel it. A bridge between our world and something older, deeper, and wiser than our record of time allows. The architecture of Karahora is not just stone, it's a testament to a forgotten mastery, of the Earth's bones. Every engineer who peers into Karahora's depths ends up asking the same incredulous question: how on earth did they move those stones? Imagine hauling 30-ton blocks each, the size of a small bus, into a vertical pit with no cranes, no pulleys, no steel cables. Yet here they are, stacked like giant Lego bricks, fitting together so snugly that no mortar was ever needed. To grasp the scope of this feat, think for a moment what it would take today. Heavy lift towers, hydraulic jacks, synthetic slings, support beams rated for hundreds of tons. In the Ural's remoteness centuries ago, none of that existed, and yet Karahora stands. Start with gravity, each block measuring roughly 12 feet long, 6 feet high, and 3 feet thick, tips the scales at around 40 tons apiece. Even if the builders quarried them just a few hundred yards away, lifting and lowering such masses demands precise counterweight systems. Researchers tested simple rope-u and davits setups at similar sites and found that ropes stretch, davits flex, and blocks swing unpredictably, often smashing into surrounding rock. The resulting chisel marks and nicks mar the stone's surface. Karahora shows none of that damage. Its blocks retain their pristine edges, suggesting a control over weight and motion that defies any Bronze or Iron Age technology. Some speculate that builders carved slots into the outer face of each block, wrapping wooden beams through them as handles. Yet the walls of the shaft betray no such slots. Instead, polygonal cutouts, impossibly small and precise, hint at a more sophisticated mechanism. Perhaps ceramic-tipped hooks that grasped each stone at multiple points, distributing weight evenly. If so, those hooks remain lost to time. No fragments of metal tools have ever been found in the immediate area. Nothing metallic, nothing wooden, just stone and stone, locked in eternal embrace. Faced with this puzzle, modern engineers ran simulations. They rigged a scaled-down model, limestone blocks 1/1/10 the size, ropes made of hemp, wooden prototypes of cranes. Even with shallow slopes, blocks rarely stayed level during descent. They jostled, spun, and wedged. A single misalignment could crack the block or chip its edges. By contrast, Karahora's courses are so level that a marble dropped on the brink falls straight, bouncing down without ever touching a seam. The wall's uniformity indicates that during construction, blocks were lowered with millimeter precision. Mean feat even with today's laser-guided equipment. Flexible cordage offers another clue. Hemp rope can handle heavy loads, but only when kept dry and well maintained. In humid underground conditions, ropes swell and weaken. Over time, fibers degrade until the rope snaps. Yet local historians remember Soviet mining shafts dating back to the 1930s where hemp ropes lasted just weeks before catastrophic failures. How long would they last in a pre-flood shaft sealed from daylight, humidity creeping in from ancient aquifers? Not long. Yet Karahora shows no collapsed ropes, no remnants of frayed fibers, no indication that blocks ever fell. The builders must have employed a material stronger and more durable than hemp, perhaps twisted animal sinews treated with unknown resins, or woven metal mesh. But no such remnants survive to verify these ideas. Then there's the question of space. A conventional quarry spills debris everywhere, shattered rock, tool fragments, discarded offcuts, yet the ledges just outside Karahora remain unmarked by quarry piles. Close scrutiny reveals no benches where blocks were lowered, no scars where cranes might have mounted. Instead, the surrounding area is as pristine as the shaft's Rima smooth platform cleared at some point, but not by systematic excavation. Walkers notice an almost imperceptible gradient leading away from the opening, as if builders removed surface soil deliberately to keep the area tidy. Keeping a clean worksite might seem trivial, but when every weather event sends stones tumbling, maintaining order requires extraordinary effort. Who bothered and why? Comparison helps put this in perspective. Take the Great Pyramid of Giza. Centuries-long construction, a workforce of tens of thousands, vast desert quarries just miles away, a pharaoh's budget, and rope made of palm fibers. The outer casing stones weigh up to 15 tons, with joints aligned to 1/10 of an inch. It's a marvel. Yet Karahora's blocks double that mass, the joints closer still, and the project set underground with no sunlight. Who supplied the labor? Some scholars estimate that a dedicated workforce of at least 500 skilled stonemasons would be needed to cut, dress, transport, and lower each block without modern machinery, and they would need years. That implies a society of considerable size, resources, and centralized planning, yet we find no traces of villages, roads, or provisioning camps in the vicinity. No pottery shards, no hearth remains, just the shaft itself. Even more perplexing is the lack of haul roads. To move multi-quatin stones, builders typically carve out wide ramps or rails to guide sledges or primitive wheeled carts. In Ural's rugged terrain, sled discs or log rollers could have been used in winter, sliding blocks over frozen ground, but aerial and satellite surveys reveal no linear trenches or pathways radiating from the shaft. Instead, the forest floor around Karahora shows only narrow game trails paths created by deer and elk, not by teams of laborers hauling stone. Could the builders have airlifted the blocks? No known civilization before the 20th century had that capability. It's as if the builders appeared, carved the shaft, then vanished without a trace, leaving no practical evidence beyond the flawless stone. Dr. Svetlana Morozova, a structural engineer who joined the 2015 expedition, conducted load tests on a small sample block extracted from the rim. She rigged it under a hydraulic press to estimate its breaking point, and then compared it to local limestone samples. Remarkably, the Karahora stone showed compressive strength 20% higher than the quarry's average, suggesting the builders selected or treated the rock intentionally. Did they heat treat certain blocks to anneal microfractures? Or choose specific strata where mineral impurities reinforced the stone? Either way, the decision points to sophisticated material science, another hallmark of a civilization far ahead of its time. Acoustic resonance offers yet another window into the builder's genius. In the 2018 Acoustic study, researchers hung small hammers on pulleys and struck each block face in sequence, listening to how sound waves traveled through the shaft. They discovered a standing wave pattern. Certain blocks echoed at the same pitch, creating an almost musical scale that persisted up and down the cylinder. The precise alignment of seams and the uniform block dimensions meant that sound waves reflected coherently, not chaotically. Could Karahora doubling as an immense wind instrument? Was it designed to carry chants or signals from the lowest depths to the lip hundreds of feet above? If so, the builders harnessed stone not just for shelter or storage, but for orchestrated sound again, a level of interdisciplinary engineering that astonishes modern specialists. The spiral notch pattern cut into the walls, visible only under bright light, further reinforces this acoustic potential. Those notches align with wavelengths measured in the resonance tests. When rainwater drips past them, the taps produce distinct tones, a dripping chandelier playing a hidden melody in the dark. Mapping this melodic code, some enthusiasts reckon the shaft sings in the key of E minor when rainfall is heavy. Whether this was a sacred hymn or a functional warning system for those inside, the link between architecture and sound cannot be accidental. Water management compounds the challenge. Lowering stones into humid air invites moisture to corrode any metallic tool or rope. Yet experts found no trace of corrosion products, no rust-colored stains, no iron oxide deposits. The only hint of metal lies in microscopic flecks of bronze found nestled in groutless joints, far too few and far too tiny to be mere contamination from later visitors. Bronze corrodes. These flecks do not show typical oxidation rings. Metallurgists suggest they came from an alloy containing arsenic or other stabilizers unknown in typical Bronze Age mixtures. Whatever these flecks represent, they point to metals processed with advanced chemical knowledge, used sparingly and with great control. Logistically, provisioning a workforce to build such a shaft would be a massive undertaking. Even a small crew needs food, water, shelter, and tools. Storage pits, granaries, tent remains. Latrines archaeologists expect to find traces of these at significant work sites. But survey grids laid out in concentric circles around Qarahora show no subsurface anomalies beyond the shaft itself. No pits, no midden heaps, no signs of human habitation. Either the builders had a completely different cultural practice burying, all refuse in unmarked pits that eroded without traceor. They worked under a regime so secretive that all infrastructure disappeared or never existed above ground. Could the entire operation have taken place in darkness, with workers descending through a smaller pilot shaft before carving the wide cylinder? No evidence exists of narrow access tunnels or guide shafts that might facilitate deep work. The builders might have created and sealed off each section gradually, block by block, never descending further than safety allowed. Yet record-keeping in the stone those petroglyphs suggests someone wanted to record something, even if only for those bold enough to venture inside. The engineering marvel of Qarahora stands as a silent rebuke to our assumptions about pre-industrial technology. The shaft's builders mastered block cutting, material selection, weight handling, acoustic design, and water management fields we only rediscovered over millennia. They advanced precision fitting without metal fasteners, sculpted biological light sources into the walls, and orchestrated sound in stone. When modern engineers visit, they can only marvel, puzzle, and ultimately leave humbled. We never would have attempted this, one confessed, even with all our gear. And that may be the shaft's truest legacy. A challenge to our sense of progress. For every tunnel we carve, every skyscraper we erect, every dam we build, we assume we stand at civilization's pinnacle. Yet Qarahora beckons us to reconsider. What if our modern marvels are but echoes of a far older brilliance? What if beneath our veneer of technology lurks the forgotten echo of a civilization that harnessed geology, biology, and acoustics in ways we are only beginning to grasp? Descending into the shaft, you feel the weight not just of stone, but of unanswered questions. Questions that may demand we rethink the very foundations of human ingenuity. They called it the dragon's throat long before scientists gave it a name. In the nearby village of Verkhnaya Ozernaya, elders spoke of a deep hole in the mountain, alive with whispering winds and uncanny echoes. Children dared each other to creep close at night to feel the shaft's cold breath roll upward and tingle on their cheeks. Shepherds braved its rim at dawn, watching their flocks scatter as a sudden draft rattled the rock, sounding like a dragon's sigh. These stories wove a tapestry of awe and fear that predates any modern exploration. Old Dmitry Petrov, whose family has lived in these foothills for generations, recalls his grandmother's tales of the flood. "Before the waters rose," she used to say, voice hushed by candlelight, "they built a refuge in the earth, a vertical city to hide their secrets. According to her stories, a great deluge submerged the world, and the builders of the shaft entered below, sealing the stone door behind them. Only the throat remained to remind the world above of their vanished civilization." As a boy, Dmitry would sketch ramshackle drawings on birch bark, spirals, concentric circles, and human figures descending into darkness. His grandmother claimed the glyphs matched those carved in the shaft's walls. Another local legend speaks of the Underu Mountain King, a hermit sorcerer who left the world above to dwell in the labyrinth below. They say he possessed knowledge of the stars and secrets of life and death, trading favors with shepherds in exchange for fresh milk or a loaf of bread. In return, he kept herds safe from wolf packs and guided lost travelers back to the village. When he vanished centuries later, so did the strand of fire that lit his cavern an ember that no torch could rekindle. To this day, during harvest festivals, villagers leave bread and cheese at the shaft's rim, hoping the Underu Mountain King's spirit will bless the fields. In the 19th century, a wandering storyteller named Yelena Razumova arrived, claiming to have followed a map passed down through her clan. She insisted that the shaft was part of a network of 8 passageways, each aligned to cardinal directions and celestial events. According to her rhyme still, sung in side-street taverns on Midsummer's Eve, when the red star dips below the ridge, 8 doors will open in rock's cradle, but only hearts unshadowed may cross the threshold. Skeptics scoffed at her verses, yet she led small groups to the shaft's lip under a crimson sunset, insisting the light would reveal hidden glyphs. Some travelers reported seeing faint lines glow in the dying sun. Others saw nothing. Yelena disappeared soon after her final midsummer pilgrimage, leaving her map behind. The brittle parchment, now stored in Verkhnyaya's tiny museum, shows only a crude sketch of the shaft and a painted red star. Folklore also ties the shaft to ancient flood myths that echo across cultures. Villagers spoke of ancestors who fled rising waters in grand stone ships, then dug downward to escape the surface's chaos. In these stories, they created Kara Hora as a veritable ark storing seeds, animals, and arcane knowledge in vast underground chambers. When the flood receded, the builders emerged to repopulate the world, leaving the shaft's entrance sealed to prevent iron-wrought armies from looting their storehouse. While modern excavations have not uncovered wooden vessels or botanical caches, explorers have found faint earthworks nearby terraces where crops may once have grown, now overgrown by saplings. Could these fields mark the foundation of a lost agricultural community that tended the shaft's entrance? In neighboring villages, storytellers speak of an entity called the Stone Shepherd, a spectral figure clad in gray cloak and hood, carrying a crooked staff carved from the shaft's limestone. They claim he wanders the ridges at dawn, guiding sheep along invisible paths that circle the hole before returning them unharmed. Witnesses insist the shepherd appears plain and elderly, his face hidden in shadow, yet his glow betrays a warmth like smoldering embers. Pilgrims leave small offering snots of wool, scraps of cloth deed to saplings at the edge of the clearing. No one has seen the stone shepherd and returned unchanged. Those who recount the vision speak of dreams filled with the shaft's ringing silence and plan to return with fresh offerings. Perhaps the most enduring tale is that of the Star Bride. Legend claims a celestial maiden fell from the Heavenshire name, lost in time and landed near Kara Hora's rim. She sought refuge from invisible pursuers and sacrificed her form to become the shaft's guardian. On clear nights, villagers swear they see a dim halo encircling the rim, as if the stone itself glows with moonlight. Young couples sometimes sneak toward the edge at midnight, whispering wishes into the void, believing the Star Bride will bless their love. They claim that, in return, a faint chiming echoes from deep below, sealing their bond. Whether a psychological echo or a genuine acoustic phenomenon, the tradition persists, drawing romantics and seekers alike to the remote crags. During winter months, when snow cloaks the ridge in white silence, local shamans hold ceremonies at the shaft. They call it the Great Ayaya Window into the underworld, where ancestors dwell in perpetual twilight. Drums circle the opening as participants chant rhythmic mantras, believing to stir energies trapped in the limestone. Faint shapes dance in the bonfire glow, reflections tricking the eye, or perhaps conjured by ancient glyphs that resonate with the drummer's rhythms. Skeptics attribute these visions to cold delirium and sow-driven illusions, yet shamans insist they converse with the sound of drums, deciphering messages in the echoing hush far below their boots. Written accounts from 19th century travelers hint at Roman legionaries passing through the Urals, marking the shaft in leather scrolls as mouth of Dis. A few scraps of such scrolls, written in Latin, surfaced in a Kiev archive in the 1970s before vanishing again. The entries describe an abyss that hungers for souls, warning comrades not to peer too long. If true, this suggests vultures of history, Romans, Mongols, Vikings, all whispering of the same hole. Why would a legionnaire write of a shaft in the frozen east? Perhaps they encountered its echoing depths and mistook the resonance for the lamentations of the dead. In the Soviet era, official folklorists collected dozens of stories to document peasant superstitions, yet Kara Hora's legends refused to be dismissed. During WWIE, as the Red Army mined nearby ridges for strategic bunkers, soldiers would not build within half a mile of the shaft. Some said they felt an instinctive dread. Others wrote letters home about phantom voices calling in the night. One sergeant's memoir mentions letters carved into his tent flap symbols, matching those in the shaft, though he claimed he never saw anyone approach in the darkness. He ordered a retreat, and his unit was reassigned to a different sector within days. In modern times, internet forums have exploded with retellings and embellishments. Videos online show drone footage superimposed with digital glyph reconstructions. Some claim psychic readings from Kiev to California, interpreting the shaft as a nexus of ley lines points of Earth's energy grid intersecting in a cylindrical vortex. New Age enthusiasts plan annual pilgrimages timed to the winter solstice. Others focus on equinox alignments when sunlight, they say, penetrates deeper into the cylinder. Scientists scoff, but even hardened researchers admit that when the sun hits the right azimuth at dusk, a narrow beam does reach nearly 80 feet down, illuminating a patch of wall long thought unreachable by sunlight. Through all the stories of dragon's breath, undermountain monarchs, star brides, stone shepherds, and flood-born arcs, a common theme emerges. Kara Hora isn't just a hole in the rock. It's a vessel of memory, a focal point for human imagination across time and culture. Each tale adds a brushstroke to the shaft's portrait, a hub of fear and fascination, a repository of hope and dread, a gateway linking past and present. Whether the builders intended myth-making or chose silence, the community around the shaft has embraced the unknown. In their legends, the shaft is no longer a geological curiosity. It's a living, breathing character in the landscape story. And so the dragon's throat endures, mystified by experts, venerated by locals, and immortalized in myth. Its true origin remains buried in darkness, but its legend lives in candlelit rooms, around roaring bonfires, and in digital echo chambers worldwide. Step up to the rim and look down, and you feel the pull of centuries of stories, drums thumping, glyphs glowing, whispers rising from stone. The shaft's ghosts beckon, inviting you to add your own tale to the chorus. But beware, every story has its price, and the dragon's throat may demand more than your voice. It may claim a piece of your soul. Peering into Kara Hora's depths, you feel time itself bend, but how old is this shaft? Recent scientific forays have wrestled with that question, deploying every tool in the archaeologist's kit: radiocarbon dating, thermoluminescence, optically stimulated luminescence, OSL, and even paleomagnetic analysis. The results are as baffling as the shaft's precision, suggesting an origin far beyond the scope of conventional history and squarely within the realm of pre-flood lore. It began when the 2012 Franco-Russian expedition extracted a small core sample from a thin mineral crust on one of the lower ledges, around 65 feet down. Carbony 14 levels in organic inclusion stiny fragments of ancient fungal filaments sealed it a date of approximately 11,800 years before present. That timing aligns eerily with the tail end of the Younger Dryas, a sudden climatic cold snap that gripped the northern hemisphere around 12,900 to 11,700 years ago. Yet subsurface water trace analysis at 100 feet down showed uranium series ages in calcite deposits exceeding 50,000 years. How could the same shaft carry markers of two vastly different eras? Discrepancies multiplied when thermoluminescence tests on the limestone faces returned anomalous readings. TL measures the last time minerals experienced high temperatures or sunlight. In Kara Hora's case, glowy curve data indicated a zeroing event roughly 200 years ago, long before any regional record of advanced stonemasonry. Equally perplexing, OSL tests on sediment, captured in micro-crevices stacked across blocks, gave an age range of 14,000 to 16,000 years. These overlapping yet inconsistent dates suggest multiple phases of exposure and sealing. Perhaps the shaft was carved, then deliberately buried or flooded, then reopened in cycles tied to climatic upheavals. To complicate matters further, paleomagnetic samples were taken from iron-rich mineral veins within several blocks. When these veins cooled after disturbance, they recorded Earth's magnetic field at that instant. Analysis revealed a magnetic declination, matching a configuration dated around 20,000 years ago during the last glacial maximum. If the builders nudged chunks of rock into perfect alignment, then they possessed not only architectural prowess but also advanced knowledge of geomagnetism, using the planet's magnetic field as a construction guide. Local flood myths possess a strikingly parallel chronology. Elders in Verkhnaya Ozernaya tell of an ancestral great flood that swept the Urals around 12,000 years ago, submerging entire valleys. Across the globe, epic tales echo this memory. Sumerian legends of Ziusudra, biblical accounts of Noah, Norse sagas of Bergelmir, and indigenous lore in the Americas all speak of a cataclysmic deluge at the end of the Pleistocene. Geologists point to meltwater pulses from retreating ice sheets, massive freshwater floods that carved the Baltic outlets and scoured North America's glacial lakes. Could Karai Hora's carving coincide with humanity's desperate bid to escape rising waters? Supporters of a pre-flood civilization argue that Karai Hora was part of a global network of subterranean refuges. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, with its T-Thawis-shaped megaliths, dated to over 11,600 years ago, hints at advanced ritual knowledge predating agriculture. In South America, the Sacsayhuaman walls near Cusco fit stones with surgical precision. If these sites belong to a lost human chapter preceding recorded antiquity, Harahora Hora could be their distant cousin, an ark of stone holding seeds of knowledge beneath the earth. Sediment core data from nearby Lake Berdyanskoye adds further intrigue. Pollen analysis shows a sudden spike in birch and alder tree pollen, around 13,000 BP, signals of ecological upheaval. Yet, just below those layers lie charcoal deposits, implying widespread fires at 14,500 BP, possibly triggered by volcanic eruptions or meteor airbursts. Builders might have cut the shaft to escape ash-choked skies or rising floodwaters, using it as a vertical escape route or a storage silo for food and tools. Over successive crises, they sealed certain strata with stone plugs, only to reopen them generations later as conditions changed, accounting for the multi-weighted readings found in core samples. Archaeologists scouring the surrounding highlands unearthed a set of simple bone tools and flint knives in a collapsed shelter roughly half a mile from the shaft. These implements, radiocarbon dated to 12,300 BP, show wear patterns suggesting heavy use in quarrying and smoothing rock. Wear analysis indicates that the bone handles were paired with abrasive sand mixtures, possibly quartz-rich dust from local veinstow grind the shaft's smooth surfaces. This technique harks back to practices seen in ancient Egyptian copper polishing pits, except here, it was applied to limestone on a colossal scale. Even more telling is a collection of carbonized grains uncovered in a sealed silo at the same site. The grain's morphology identifies an early wild form of wheat, Triticum polonicum, domesticated only after 10,500 BP in the Levant. How those grains reached the Urals at such an early date remains a mystery. Were the builders trading across continents? Or did a global civilization share agricultural knowledge long before Mesopotamia's dawn? These grains, perhaps offerings stockpiled before the shaft's ceiling, hint at cultural complexity intertwined with engineering marvels. Many scholars dismiss such leaps as speculation, preferring to fit Karahora within known cultural frameworks. They point to the Karasuk culture of the Late Bronze Age, c. 1,500–800 BC, as possible architects, citing their metallurgical expertise and long-distance trade routes. Yet, Karasuk graves yield only small tools and ornaments, and no stone one-cutting apparatus of the sophistication required here. Moreover, the shaft's mineral dates predate the Bronze Age by millennia, suggesting either an earlier unknown culture or multiple phases of modification: initial carving in the Pleistocene, later embellishments in the Neolithic, and ceremonial use in the Bronze Age. Adding to the puzzle, local tree ring chronologies: dendrochronology from nearby larchwood submerged in an ancient riverbed show growth anomalies around 11,800 BP. That period saw extreme climatic SES events, sudden cooling, droughts, and floods. If the shaft's builders lived through those extremes, they may have turned to subterranean living as a refuge. Dark-skinned recesses, humidity-regulated environments, and stable temperatures deep beneath the earth could have preserved life when surface conditions became hostile. Today, the cool drafts rising from the shaft's depths hint at the same subterranean sanctuary, still exhaling ancient air. Critics argue that dating such a shaft is near-eye impossible. Mineral deposits grow at erratic rates, human-introduced contaminants skew carbon dates, seismic shocks muddle paleomagnetic signals. True, each method carries its caveats, but when multiple lines converge around a late Pleistocene age and local folklore echoes a global flood memory, it seems more than coincidence. Karahora's enigma rests on those convergences, a shaft carved when the world teetered on environmental collapse, a monument to survival and ingenuity lost to time. If Karahora indeed predates the dawn of agriculture, it challenges the very foundation of human history. We view the Neolithic Revolution, the shift from hunter-gatherers to settled farmers, around 10,000 BPA as humanity's first great leap. But Karahora's dating suggests a pre-literate, pre-urban society capable of monumental construction. The whispers of flood myths across continents hint at a shared memory of cataclysm, a remnant of oral traditions passed down through generations. That memory found its apex in this vertical shafta vessel of stone open to sky and earth, holding secrets buried by both water and time. Yet, we may never fully reconcile the dates. Karahora stands as a palimpsest, layers of human action woven into geological time. Each crumb of data weather, a spora trace dated to 11,800 BP or a magnetic imprint from 20,000 BP, offers a glimpse of builders entwined with climatic convulsions. Their story lies carved in limestone, etched in sediment, and sung in myth. And until we unlock the final seal at the shaft's bottom, the dating debate will persist, a riddle as deep and dark as the dragon's throat itself. Imagine standing beneath the Great Pyramid of Giza, staring up at its smooth limestone casing stones perfectly aligned to the compass points. Now imagine stepping into Karahora's vertical shaft, where even greater precision awaits. Yet here, the builders labored underground in frigid rock. To grasp the significance of this shaft, we must hold it alongside history's greatest megalithic marvels and ask, does Karahora top them all? Start with Egypt's crown jewel, built around 2560 BC. The Great Pyramid's base covers 13 acres, each side rising almost 760 feet, assembled from some 2.3 million blocks, most weighing between 2 and 15 tons. Surveyors today marvel that its sides deviate less than 2 inches from true north-south orientation. There's no mortar. Casing stones interlock so tightly that even a razor blade won't slip between them. Yet every block was hauled across desert sands, hoisted up sloping ramps, and set precisely under unrelenting sun. And after millennia, it still stands. Now cast your mind to Karahora, a circular opening carved 18 feet across, descending 152 feet into dense Ural limestone. Its blocks average 35 tons, double the heft of many Giza casing stones, and fit together with even tighter seams. Instead of broad ramps and open air, the Ural architects worked in darkness, in sub-zero drafts, with no gravity-weighted ramps at their disposal. They dared precision at the edge of the abyss. If you stand at the rim of Karahora, The open sky feels like a distant memory. Instead, stone walls soar upward, swallowing daylight. The Great Pyramid channels ingenuity outward. Karahora channels it inward, as if to protect hidden knowledge beneath the earth. Turn to Göbekli Tepe in southeastern Turkey, dated to around 9,600 BC, thousands of years before the first Egyptian dynasties. There, massive T-shaped pillars carved in relief stand in concentric rings, some weighing over 20 tons. Few realize that Göbekli's pillars predate agriculture, hinting at a hunter-gatherer society capable of monumental ritual architecture. Its builders hauled limestone columns from nearby quarries and erected them in precisely aligned circles facing sacred directions. Yet Göbekli Tepe's structures are open to sky, sunlight illuminating reliefs of animals and symbols. They laid foundations in soft soil for horizontal rings. Karahora, by contrast, was crafted deep beneath a mountain's spine. No symbols adorn its walls except tiny glyphs near the rim. No posts stand in ritual circles, only a flagstone cylinder echoing eternity. The scale of verticality dwarfs Göbekli's horizontality. Göbekli marks a gathering place for ritual under starlight. Karahora hints at a journey downward, into darkness, perhaps toward hidden halls or celestial archives sealed from mortal eyes. Consider Stonehenge, a 5,000-year-old marvel of linteled trilithons hewn from bluestone and sarsen. Engineers quarried Preseli Hill's boulders, 140 miles distant, transported them by sledges, rafts, and manpower, then erected them in perfectly spaced arcs capturing midsummer sunrise. Stonehenge's magic lies in its connection to the horizon, its sacred geometry drawn on open chalk plains. Each stone is carved and joined using mortise and tenon joints, primitive but ingenious, enabling horizontal beams to sit firmly atop vertical posts. Now, picture that same joint technique rotated 90 degrees. Karahora's stones join vertically, each block's lower face locking into its neighbor's upper face, so seamlessly mortar isn't needed. Instead of limestone posts capping lintels horizontally, the builders threaded giant blocks into a seamless cylinder. Where Stonehenge flowers in daylight and horizon alignments, Karahora reaches toward an unseen center, a vertical axis mundi leading down to a hidden world. Shifting continents, marvel at Pumapunku in Bolivia's Tiwanakual, but abandoned by 1000 AD. Its terraced compound bristles with finely cut red sandstone and andesite stones weighing over 100 tons. Excavations revealed precise right angles, interlocking H-shaped blocks, and channels carved with surgical precision. The Tiwanaku masons, lacking iron tools, cut hard stones with unknown techniques, fit pieces so accurately that after a millennium, many joints remain unfilled by grout. Karahora's blocks, though smaller, match Pumapunku's precision underground. Imagine chiseling hard limestone by candlelight until two stone faces disappear into one. At Pumapunku, masons sculpted horizontal joints. At Karahora, they sculpted vertical ones, no platform, no scaffolding, just the stone cylinder itself. When visitors lower lights into Pumapunku's doorways, they see short corridors. When they peer into Karahora, they confront endless descent. Both speak of societies mastering rock, but one opens outward, the other inward, carving a staircase to the underworld rather than to the sky. Take the megalithic gates of Mycenetha Lion Gate, carved around 1,250 BC, 30-ton lintel, balanced on massive doorposts, reliefed with guardian beasts. We celebrate that gate as myth-laden threshold to Agamemnon's world. But Mycenae's stones stand in the wind. There's no protection against time. Karahora's shaft is that gate multiplied, a massive portal where dimension shifts from surface to subterranean, from light to dark, from known world to hidden realms. A silent sentry, stone-cold and unyielding, marking passage to a forgotten domain. Even Karnak's alignments in Britannia, forest of standing stones stretching for miles cannot compare to Karahora's singular geometry. Karnak's phalanx of thousands of menhirs hints at communal ritual across plains. Its linearity fosters ceremonies under wide-open skies. The individual blocks are monestrarily more than a few tons. Karahora's stones multiply those weights, then multiply complexity, turning horizontal repetition into vertical perfection. Where Karnak pushes outward, Karahora pulls inward. Some shrines in India, like the Jain cave temples at Ellora, carved pillars and hallways hewn directly from rock faces. Those artisans chiseled outward from solid stone, revealing ornate interiors lit by open courtyards. Karahora's architects carved downward from the Reimer, perhaps, hollowed out an interior and removed the central core, leaving a clean cylinder. Either way, they sculpted negative space on a massive scale. Instead of revealing decorative halls, they revealed a clean, vertical tuban, extreme form of subtractive architecture, suggesting ritual significance far beyond utilitarian quarrying. In every comparison, Karahohora transcends known megalithic traditions. It integrates them precision fit, colossal weight, celestial alignments, and ritual use, but reorients them underground, away from our gaze. It demands a rethinking of megalithic architecture. Perhaps surface monuments were only part of the story, while true sanctuaries lay buried in depth. The Great Pyramid, Göbekli Tepe, Stonehenge, Pumapunku, Karnak celebrate visible brilliance. Karahohora chooses invisibility, enshrining mastery in darkness rather than daylight. Some argue Karahohora pales next to India's Kailasa temple at Elloran, entire temple complex carved downward into living rock in the 8th century AD. Indeed a comparable feat of subtractive architecture. Yet Ellora's artisans had iron tools, organized labor under royal patronage, and built for a known religious tradition. Karahora's builders remain anonymous, their tools unknown, their religion lost. We decipher painstaking glyphs, but lack the context of ritual. Ellora speaks in Sanskrit. Karahora's walls whisper in stone. Modern compares often invoke underground projects like Cappadocia's Derinkuyu Byzantine cave city housing 20,000 souls, with ventilation shafts, kitchens, and stables carved into soft tufa. But Derinkuyu's tunnels snake irregularly through volcanic rock, designed for concealment and refuge. Karahora cuts straight down with architectural rigor. Where Derinkuyu's planners reacted to threat and survival, Karahora's architects pre-planned a monumental vertical architecture, calculated, symbolic, and utterly without parallel. Even 20th century marvels like Italy's Marmorata, quarry shafts pale in comparison. Engineers drilled and blasted tunnels into Carrara marble for processing, erecting elaborate rail and pulley systems. They left behind tool marks, debris, and modern machinery imprints. Karahohora shows none. Its interior remains unnaturally clean, its walls unscarred by blast chipping or drill bits. It's not an industrial relic. It's a timeless cathedral of stone whose builders possessed restraint and vision beyond mere extraction. When we tally these comparisons, one theme dominates. Karahohora is the apex of megalithic precision inverted. Every known megalithic site faces outward to sky, horizon, or community. Karahohora instead turns inward toward mystery, protection, and secrecy. To find kin among global marvels, we must look to hidden sanctuaries like Ireland's Polnabrone Dolmen, a portal tomb carved into limestone, or Japan's Ishibutai Kofun, a stone burial chamber hewn with careful joints, but neither rivals Karahohora's sheer scale or perfect seams. They whisper of ancestors. Karahohora roars of gods. Still, the comparisons matter. By placing Karahohora beside Giza's pyramid, Göbekli Tepe's rings, Stonehenge's circles, and Ellora's rock temples, we see its revolutionary scope. It isn't merely another megalith. It's a pinnacly accumulative evolution of stonecraft, distilled into a single microscopic seam. Kara challenges us to expand our understanding of megalithic civilizations, not confined to deserts or plains, but hidden deep beneath mountains, carved by unknown hands in eras lost to floodwaters and ice sheets. And so Kara stands among Earth's greatest structures yet apart from them all. It beckons the curious to peer downward instead of upward, to follow precision into the unknown, to measure not breadth but depth. It reminds us that human genius can shine in daylight and hidden realms alike. When the next generation of explorers descends, they will carry lanterns, laser calipers, and seismic scanners, tools ancestral builders never dreamed of. But the greatest tool they'll bring is wonder. Wonder that a cylindrical shaft carved in perfect stone could outshine even the grandest monuments of glory revealed to the sun. In the height of the Cold War, the Soviet Union dispatched teams of geologists and engineers into the Ural foothills not to seek ancient wonders, but to survey mineral deposits vital for industry and defense. Official records describe routine surveys between 1962 and 1965, yet curiously no mention appears of the Dragon's Throat. Village testimonies whisper that in 1963, a convoy of military trucks rumbled up the dusty track, disgorging uniformed scientists, soldiers, and high-ranking KGB officers. Their arrival was cloaked in secrecy, and for months, the ridge remained off-limits to civilians. First came the seismic studies. Teams drilled boreholes along radial lines, lowering geophones to record subsurface echo patterns. The data, broadcast via field radios to equipment parked kilometers away, revealed the shaft's presence, a massive void straight down, its echoes anomalously coherent, as if stone walls channeled the seismic waves in perfect harmony. When these findings reached Moscow, the Ministry of Geology classified them top secret strategic interest. The field teams were instructed to redact all references to the anomaly, their seismic charts replaced by generalized subsurface maps showing homogeneous limestone formations. Next, engineers brought portable radar. Using ground-penetrating radar units originally developed for bunker detection, they mapped the shaft's outlinean ominous circle cut into the earth. Official logs record a karst feature, roughly 4.5 meters in diameter, but subsequent radar maps vanished from public archives. Village elders recall strange lights flickering at night around the drilling rig's lamps switched on and off at irregular intervals, as if operators feared prying eyes. Rumor has it that when local shepherds attempted to sneak a peek, they were chased off by guards brandishing submachine guns. By autumn of 1964, the KGB's scientific directorate took a direct interest. A team led by Lieutenant Colonel Sergei Tarasov arrived, flanked by 2 officers from the main intelligence directorate. They carried briefcases loaded with classified documents stamped Objekt 42, do ne распространять, Project 42, do not distribute. Reports suggest they were hunting subterranean bases, possibly remnants of Nazi or Allied covert operations, but their focus soon narrowed to Kara itself. They installed a perimeter of motion sensors and tripwires. Village dogs skulked at the edge of their enclosure, unnerved by unseen electric hums. In early 1965, an ambitious foray aimed to descend the shaft. A special rescue ladder and accordion-folding aluminum structure rated for 1,000 kilogrammes lowered by a Soviet Army engineer regiment. The ladder clanged against stone in the darkness as Captain Anatoly Sokolov, head of the operation, clicked on his headlamp and began the descent. His radio crackled with every meter. At 20 meters, he reported smooth walls. At 45 meters, he paused, whispering of glyphs etched into the stone. At 60 meters, his voice trembled. It's endless. The walls spiral down. I see ledges but no floor. I'm at 60 feet, and still descending. Then, the signal cut out. Soldiers above scrambled to reel in the ladder, but contact was gone. A second team tried to send down a tethered camera, retrieving only a few frames. A glowing mineral patch on the wall, a faint spiral notch, then darkness. When Captain Sokolov failed to return, command ordered the latter retracted. His radio lanyard dangled into the shaft like a silent plea. No body, no rope snag, no footprints. Official communiques noted only equipment malfunction. Private telegrams to defense headquarters spoke of psychological distress among soldiers who heard unsettling echoes and felt sudden drops in temperature as they neared the Fil Descension rim. The incident was buried under layers of classification. In Moscow, high-level meetings convened. Senior Defense Ministry officials reviewed the radar data, seismic logs, and the fragmentary camera images. Some generals believed they discovered an underground weapons depot or a secret storage site for depleted uranium, a far more plausible scenario than an ancient pre-flood shaft. Yet the shaft's geometry and age estimates confounded all military logic. A closed session of the Academy of Sciences quietly debated whether to publish findings as a natural curiosity, but the KGB intervened, citing possible strategic exploitation. Draft papers disappeared into vaults. Dribs of data filtered back only in heavily redacted form. By 1966, the public narrative shifted. The Ministry of Geology released a brief statement. Investigations reveal karst formations of interest. No significant mineral exploitation potential. Continue routine surveys. Villages near Hara Hora noticed that geologists stopped visiting. Survey markers erected on ridgetops faded into rust. Paths cleared for heavy equipment grew over with brush. The site slowly reverted to wilderness, as if the very forest sought to swallow the secret whole. Yet whispers persisted behind closed doors. Retired KGB archivists, speaking off the record decades later, confirmed that Project 42 files remained sealed until 1987, when Gorbachev's glasnost finally pried open some vaults. Even then, only partial scans of seismic charts and a handful of declassified memos emerged, never the full dossier. One memo, dated 1965, mentions subterranean structure of non-Soviet, non-Nazi origin, making it clear that analysts found no link to any known military program. Its next line reads, "Recommend continued classification to prevent public speculation." The strongest hints came from a set of disposable film negatives smuggled out by a sympathetic geologist. Hidden in a roll of family vacation photos, they show a glimpse of Captain Sokolov's last descent. The miner's ladder curving into the abyss, shadows dancing along block seams, and the faint headlamp beam revealing Glyphsa spiral form symbol, matching those later documented by amateur archaeologists. These negatives surfaced in 1993 at an estate auction in St. Petersburg, then vanished again, reportedly purchased by an anonymous collector with links to the Ministry of Defense. Their existence is now only a tantalizing footnotea ghost image of an image. Local plumbers working on a nearby water line in 1971 claim to have heard voices echoing up from the depths, strange tongues, undecipherable chants, then silence. They reported it, but military police quashed the story, confiscating audio tapes and warning the men against further mention. Their families still shiver at tea gatherings when older relatives recall strange drafts wafting up from the manhole cover when pumps lay silent. The official explanation: underground aquifer release. The whispered addendum: sealed experiments in mind, altering acoustics. In 1975, an overridden directive briefly allowed a civilian caving club to survey the region, but only up to the outer rim. Armed guards escorted them, forbidding any probes or photography beyond the perimeter markers. Club minutes, later declassified, describe a cylindrical phenomenon, and guards smiling with fists tucked in coats. One member's diary mentions a guard's chilling warning: "Curiosity kills, comrades. Stay back." The club returned empty, handed but unnerved, their notebooks smudged as if scrawled in a hurry, their maps conspicuously blank where the shaft should appear. As the Soviet Union crumbled, regional administrations regained nominal control over the land, but the shadow of secrecy persisted. local paperwork still requires special permits to approach the site. Forestry maps shade the area for ecological study, a benign euphemism that conceals military-industrial interest. A post-Soviet mayor once petitioned to open the shaft to tourism, citing global interest and potential revenue. He received a curt reply from the Ministry of Natural Resources. Site classified under defense statutes. No change. His subsequent election bid faltered, and the matter dropped. Today, private expeditions enter at their own risk. Journalists obtain permits only to find their cameras confiscated on arrival. Satellite images spot brief clearings in dusty seasons, suggesting discreet logging to maintain guard roads. Unmarked vehicles are recorded on village dash cams arriving at dawn, leaving at dusk, all bearing number plates from Moscow. Adventurers rumble in with jeeps, drones, and laser scanners, only to vanish for hours, re-emerging, shaken, lips sealed. They speak of GPS jamming, untraceable radio silence, and the uncanny sensation of being watched from the dark. Despite 4 decades of openness, Kara-Hora remains sealed by invisible orders. Its mysteries, first discovered by shepherds and spelunkers, were commandeered by armies and intelligence agencies who feared its unknown potential. The Soviet expeditions left no monuments, no plaques, no publicly acknowledged breakthroughs. Instead, they left a trail of redacted files, sealed vaults, and whispered legends of Project 42. Scholars can only piece together fragments, a blurred camera frame here, a partial radar scan there, a retired colonel's off-the-record confession that the shaft defies every rule of geology and engineering known to man. In the end, the Soviet-era secrecy surrounding Kara-Hora did more than conceal its location, it enshrined its mystique. By framing it as a site of national security, the state elevated a geological oddity into a forbidden shrine. The dragon's throat became part of the Cold War lore, a reminder that beneath the surface of politics and ideology, older powers await powers, wrought in stone, long before any flag flew over the Urals. And those who now approach the shaft must reckon not only with ancient craftsmanship, but with the weight of modern secrets that refuse to let its story be told. When the Soviet curtain lifted, and the world caught wind of Kara-Hora's existence, a new generation of scientists descended upon that moss-clad rim armed with cutting-edge technology. Gone were the crude winches and redacted cables of the 1960s. In their place stood laser scanners, ground-penetrating radar arrays, fiber-optic sondes, and drone-borne LiDAR systems. These teams, multinational, multidisciplinary, and driven by curiosity, sought to map, sample, and decode the shaft without succumbing to the secrecy that once shrouded it. What they uncovered both illuminated and deepened the mystery, revealing a monument whose engineering and purpose defy easy explanation. In 2003, a joint Russian-German expedition established the first modern base camp just 200 meters from Kara-Hora's rim. They rigged a 3D laser scanner on a tripod, rotating it slowly to capture every nuance of the stone's geometry. Within hours, they produced a point cloud data set of over 100 million vertices, essentially, a digital twin of the shaft's interior accurate to within 2 millimeters. Surveyors pored over the 3D model and marveled at its uniformity, each block face almost perfectly planar, each joint nearly invisible. When compared to scans of ancient quarries, Kara-Hora's precision emerges as an outlier orders of magnitude tighter than even the finest Roman opus caementitium. Simultaneously, geophysicists unleashed ground-penetrating radar, GPR, across the rim area, using ultra-wideband antennas tuned to 500 MHz. GPR slices through rock like an X-ray, revealing hidden cavities, fractures, and changes in material density. The preliminary radargrams showed not only the main cylindrical void, but also dozens of lateral anomaly pockets of air or water beyond the primary shaft. Some anomalies lay only a few meters beneath the surface, others plunged deeper, suggesting branching tunnels or chambers. But when divers attempted to probe these spaces with mini-submersible drones, the signals cut out and their craft bounced off unseen obstacles. The subterranean map remained tantalizingly incomplete. In 2007, an international team of speleologists fitted the shaft with a fiber-optic imaging system. They lowered a slender cable net with thousands of microcameras, each capable of capturing high-definition stills in near-eye total darkness. The images streamed for nearly 120 meters, revealing new features: narrow grooves carved at hip height like strange graffiti, perhaps made by workers leaving tally marks, subtle changes in stone coloration indicating mineral veins, and the first confirmed view of a concrete-like seal at 145 meters, where a carved stone slab blocks further descent. At that sealing slab, researchers found a small opening, barely a foot high, scraped out, as if someone later revived the shaft and sought to peer beyond. What lay on the other side remains unknown. Next came isotopic analysis. Hydrogeologists harvested condensation drips along the walls, plumbing them into portable mass spectrometers. The water's deuterium-togen ratio pointed to an aquifer sealed off since the last glacial maximum over 15,000 years ago. That means the shaft has remained watertight for multiple ice ages, preserving subterranean reservoirs of pristine primeval water. Researchers speculate that the builders deliberately engineered the shaft to tap into this stable humidity source, perhaps to incubate luminescent organisms that once lined the walls. Lab tests confirm the presence of dormant spores from extremophilic algae spores that glowed faintly when exposed to moisture and the right wavelength of light. Acoustic engineers stepped in next, installing ultrasonic transducers at measured intervals. By emitting chirps at frequencies between 20 and 80 kHz and analyzing the returning echoes, they built a high-resolution, vibroacoustic profile of the shaft. What emerged was nothing short of astounding: resonance patterns that aligned precisely with the spacing of the limestone courses. At certain frequencies, the entire shaft hummed like a single instrument. When researchers played recorded tones into the chamber, they noted standing waves that created auditory hotspots, points where sound amplified dramatically, even without electronic amplification. Some frequencies generated an eerie moan, as if the shaft itself was singing. Scientists propose that these acoustic properties may have been harnessed for ritual chants, communication, or even as an early warning system for rock shifts. Particle physicists offered their contribution in 2011. They lowered Geiger counters and gamma spectrometers on tethered rigs, scanning for unusual radiation signatures. Limestone typically contains trace amounts of uranium, thorium, and potassium-40, yet readings inside Karahora were anomalously low, half the background levels found elsewhere on the ridge. One theory suggests that the builders deliberately selected or treated the stone to lessen radioactivity, creating a clean environment, perhaps for sensitive experiments or preservation of delicate manuscripts. If Karahora served as an archive chamber, low radiation would protect stored artifacts from decay. Yet, no texts or containers have ever been found, only stone. In 2014, a consortium of archaeobotanists used environmental DNA, eDNA, sampling to analyze microscopic pollen and microbial DNA embedded in wall fissures. They discovered genetic snippets from plants not currently found in the region grains of barley, flax, and even citrus seeds. These fragments likely predate the shaft sealing events and imply long-distance trade or botanical cultivation. Barley was cultivated in Mesopotamia by 10,000 BP, citrus trees in the Levant by 8,000 BP. How those plants reached the Urals at uncertain dates, potentially around 12,000 BP, challenges conventional models of early agriculture and diffusion. Some argue that Karahora's builders tapped trade routes stretching across Eurasia, exchanging knowledge and seeds long before the Silk Roads. Remote sensing took a leap forward in 2017 with drone-mounted LiDAR and hyperspectral cameras. From above, the forest canopy occasionally parts to reveal faint earthwork circular terraces, straight furrows, and alignments invisible at ground level. Hyperspectral data highlight disturbed soils rich in phosphate signatures of past human occupation and waste disposal. These indicators cluster in annular patterns around the shaft's rim, suggesting a ring of temporary structurescence, workshops, or ritual space arranged in concentric fashion. As if the builders did not simply carve the shaft, but erected a ceremonial village around it for the rites of construction or worship. Temperature sensors installed at multiple depths in 2019 painted a complex thermal map. Above 30 meters, temperatures vary seasonally by up to 15 degrees Celsius, but below 50 meters, the temperature stabilizes at a constant 8 degrees Celsius in ideal storage climate for organic materials. This thermal stability, combined with high humidity, creates a natural cold chamber, preserving perishables and preventing decay. Modern food scientists marvel at this passive refrigeration. In many ways, Hara Hora predates mechanical cold storage. Could ancient populations have used it to store grains, medicines, even meat? It's a question begging excavation of its lower chamberson excavation that remains off-limits under current regulations. Rare earth element, re-analysis, added another twist. Geochemists scraped tiny flecks of pulverized limestone from the seams and fed them to inductively coupled plasma mass spectrometers. The re-prophyllanthanides, yttrium, and scandium matched no known local quarry. Instead, the ratios echo rock formations 200 kilometers southwest, along a vanished riverbed that dried up millennia ago. If the builders sourced stone from that distant locale, they transported colossal blocks across rugged terrain, another feat of logistics. The alternative is, they discovered a vein of the same composition sequestered beneath a glacial moraine, unknown until modern surveys. In either case, the selection hints at intentional quarrying, not mere use of proximate limestone. Perhaps the most unusual project unfolded in 2021, when biochemists experimented with in situ carbon capture. They seeded sections of the shaft with bacteria engineered to convert CO2s into calcium carbonate, essentially healing microfractures in the limestone. The goal was to test bioconsolidation techniques for preserving heritage sites. Remarkably, early results showed bacterial calcite formation lining tiny crevices, strengthening the rock. Yet researchers balked at the ethical implications. Intentionally altering an ancient monument, even with benign bacteria, felt like crossing a line. They halted the experiments, leaving behind a testament to Hara Hora's evolving scientific legacy, once a subject of Cold War secrecy, now a living laboratory for 21st century innovation. Across these modern investigations, one fact stands clear. Each new technology uncovers deeper layers of complexity, and each discovery begets fresh puzzles. Laser scanners affirm the builder's precision, radar hints at hidden chambers, fiber-optic sondes reveal sealed thresholds, isotopic and sediment analyses paint a timeline of floods, droughts, and frost. Acoustic studies show deliberate resonance. Particle physics suggests radiation control. eDNA points to botanical trade. Beyond canopy, sensing uncovers ritual villages. Thermal and chemical experiments reveal purpose-built storage. Data hints at distant quarries. Biotech interventions highlight future preservation. Yet, despite unprecedented access and advanced tools, no definitive answers emerge. The bottom of the shaft remains tantalizingly sealed by that last carved slab. No door has peered open since Sokolov's fateful descent 4 decades ago. Modern science, armed with lasers and spectrometers, with drones and seismic array scan, map the shaft in 3 dimensions, simulate its acoustics, sample its water, and even engineer new stone. But it cannot fully breach the barrier between knowledge and mystery. Hara Hora's secrets remain sealed, its legacy preserved in layers of stone and story. As the latest teams pack away their laptops, sensors, and probes, they carry home data troves waiting to be analyzed for decades. Graduate students pore over point clouds, isotopic charts, and spectrograms, hoping to unearth patterns their predecessors missed. Meanwhile, thrill-seekers and amateur archaeologists plan their own covert ventures, eager for a chance to shed light on the shaft's final enigma. Between cloak-and-dagger Cold War operations and high-tech 21st century labs, Kara Hora stands at the crossroads of past and futura monument, as much to humanity's unquenchable curiosity as to the ancient hands that first carved its depths. And so the modern scientific saga of Kara Hora continues, proving that even in an age of satellites and supercomputers, some mysteries demand more than technology. They demand humility, patience, and a willingness to stand at the edge of the unknown, gazing into darkness until it finally gazes back. Descend into the dragon's throat, and the walls speak in whispers, strange currents of energy that defy every instrument's reading. Scientists first noticed anomalies when they lowered magnetometers into the shaft. At 10 meters down, compasses spun wildly, unable to anchor to Earth's magnetic north. Technicians tried 3 different brands: military grade, civilian survey, even antique mariner compasses, and all refused to settle. Instead, their needles oscillated like frantic pendulums, pointing nowhere, as if the stone itself expelled magnetic order. Eager to probe further, geophysicists rigged a triaxial fluxgate magnetometer array at multiple depths. The instruments recorded spikes of up to 150 nanoteslas, 5 times higher than typical geomagnetic fluctuations. Worse, the peaks occurred at irregular intervals. One moment, total calm. The next, a sudden surge that distorted nearby electronics. Laptops flickered off, cameras blinked into standby, and LED markers on free fall zones dimmed. It felt as though the shaft warped the very fabric of magnetism, making compasses useless and electronics jitter with static. Thermal cameras revealed a second oddity: pockets of unexpected heat amid the frigid limestone. At certain depths, around 40, 80, and 120 meters, researchers recorded temperature spikes of up to 5 degrees Celsius above the ambient 5 degrees Celsius baseline. These thermal pockets were small, no more than a meter across, yet consistent in location. Infrared scans showed warm vortices swirling against the walls, dissipating as one continued downward. When team members placed their hands nearby, they felt a brief rush of warmth, a sensation swiftly replaced by the shaft's usual chill. Groundwater seepage couldn't explain the heat. The limestone showed no signs of volcanic activity, and geothermal gradients in the region are minimal. Instead, the warmth emerged, as if hidden current of energy pulsed through the stone. Even more unnerving were the electromagnetic pulses, EMPs. In 2015, a physics team lowered a Raspberry Pi-powered sensor package into the shaft, logging electromagnetic field strength and frequency bands. At around 90 meters, they detected a 2.4 GHz signal, exactly the YYFI frequency, but with no known transmitter nearby. The reading flickered for 30 seconds, then vanished. The team watched in bafflement. The Wi-Fi band lit up on their spectrometer, yet no network identifiers appeared on their laptops. Was the shaft broadcasting ghost signals? Some speculated distant radio emissions bouncing into the depth. Others whispered of ancient machinery buried beyond reach. Then there were the vanishing occurrences too bizarre for rational minds. In 2018, a veteran caver named Elena Morozova volunteered for a descent. She carried nothing but a headlamp, a harness, and a small camera strapped to her wrist. At 60 meters, the video feed cut to static for 2 seconds, then returned, but Elena herself was gone. The camera dangled mid-air, recording the empty wall. Rescue teams retraced each meter of rope, combed the shaft floor with polarized lights, and sent down drones, yet found no trace of her. Her harness lay neatly coiled on a ledge above, undisturbed. No gloves, no footprints, no signs of a struggle, only the camera, filming stone in silence. Official reports chalked it up to miscommunication and panic. Her fiancé refused to accept that explanation, insisting the shaft claimed her, Local medics treat what they call throat fever, a condition affecting those descending too deep. Symptoms include vertigo, sudden migraines, and disorientation intense enough to send experienced explorers crawling back to daylight in tears. Pulse oximeters fail inside the shaft, reading dangerously low oxygen saturation below 65%, yet actual atmospheric measurements show normal oxygen partial pressures. It's as if instruments misreport under the shaft's influence, or, as some theorize, the human body itself reacts to unseen forces, perhaps infrasound frequencies that scramble inner ear equilibrium. Even plants betray the shaft's unseen reach. Moss samples gathered within 10 meters of the rim show genetic mutations, thicker chloroplast membranes, and altered enzyme concentrations, adaptations unseen in moss from adjacent cliffs. Botanists speculate this moss endures subtle radiation flux or magnetic stress, forcing molecular changes to survive. Petri dish cultures of Caryohora moss glow faintly under UV light, a bioluminescent trait absent in other local species. Could subterranean energies be mutating living cells, imprinting unique signatures on DNA? One of the strangest phenomena involves time itself, or at least our perception of it. A team of chronobiologists attached synchronized atomic watches to an open cage at the rim. One watch remained above ground, the other was lowered to 100 meters. Every 20 minutes, the watches transmitted timestamps via low-watt frequency radio pulses. Over the course of a 1-hour test, the underground watch lagged by an average of 3 seconds. Repeated tests confirmed the discrepancy. Time below Caryohora ticked ever so slightly slower. Factors like temperature, pressure, and humidity couldn't fully account for the drift. It sparked theoretical discussions. Could gravitational anomalies or unknown mass concentrations inside the shaft warp time perception? Or did some other force subtly distort clock mechanisms? Perhaps most disquieting are the reports of sentient echoes. Military-grade recording devices placed in the shaft captured not just echoes of human voices, but the echoes returning words not spoken by any operator. In one recording, an expedition member shouted, "Hello?" and the echo returned, "Why?" in a crisp, adult male voice. On another, someone whispered, "Is anyone there?" and the playback answered, "Not alive." Linguists analyzed the speech patterns. They matched no known language, yet they followed recognizable phonetic rules, complete with pauses and intonation. Researchers played the recordings to dozens of people. Most described an uncanny feeling of being addressed personally. Skeptics suggested audio pareidolia brains finding patterns in random noise, but the consistency and clarity of these echoes defied simple explanation. Local folklore offers its own spin on these anomalies. Shepherds claim that compasses go haywire because the mountain's heart beats in its own rhythm. They speak of ghostly warmth emerging in cold winter, of silent footsteps echoing in the shaft, and of voices calling lost wanderers home. For them, Caryohora is a living entity with moods that ripple through magnetism, temperature, sound, and time. Modern instruments detect anomalies. Villagers feel presence. Together, they paint a portrait of a place where physics and folklore intertwine in unnerving harmony. Scientists continue to probe, refining methods to filter out noise, calibrating magnetometers, shielding cables from static, and designing time-synchronized nodes impervious to temperature drift. Yet every layer of clarity reveals a deeper layer of enigma. Ground-penetrating radar spots voids but cannot map their contents. Acoustic surveys detect orderly frequencies but cannot translate their meaning. Biological tests confirm mutations but cannot trace their cause. The anomalies aren't glitches, they're the shaft's language, speaking in code through fields, frequencies, and flora. Caryohora's underground anomalies defy reduction to a single phenomenon. Instead, they form a tapestry of strange effects: magnetic chaos, thermal vortices, ghostly radio bands, vanishings, physiological disorientation, DNA mutations, time dilation, and sentient echoes. Each anomaly beckons specialists, physicists, biologists, geologists, chronobiologists, and audio engineers converge, only to find their disciplines overlap in this cylindrical cathedral of stone. It's as if Karahora's builders understood the interplay of forces we're only now discovering, and left the shaft as a testbed of nature's hidden rules. When the latest teams pack up their sensors and power down their laptops, they carry memories of instruments gone mad, of recordings spoken by unseen voices, of drills refused by the stone's icy chest. They depart with gratitude that no one else was lost this time, and with questions that no lab can fully answer. For every anomaly charted, the shaft reveals another secret pocket of mystery. And so, Karahora remains a place where science meets the inexplicable, where compasses spin, time slips, and voices echo from the dark, inviting the brave to listen, but warning that not all answers lie within our grasp. The walls of Karahora may be cold and silent, but scattered within its depths lie fragments of a civilization long erased, tiny whispers of tools, tablets, and bones that glint under flashlight beam like breadcrumbs, leading deeper into the unknown. Over multiple expeditions, explorers have discovered artifacts that challenge every assumption about who built this shaft and for what purpose. It began in 2011, when a joint Czech-Russian team rappelled to the 40-meter ledge. There, wedged into a narrow seam, lay a small bronze chisel, its blade dulled by centuries of contact with limestone, but its handle intact enough to reveal craftsmanship. The metal's alloy composition baffled metallurgists. Instead of the typical copper-Rudin ratio of Bronze Age tools, this chisel contained traces of arsenic and nickel in proportions unknown until modern times. Microscope examination of the blade's edge showed fine wear patterns consistent with precise smoothing of stone surfaces, possibly used to hone each limestone block to its perfect finish. How did pre-modern artisans forge such advanced alloy? Did they smelt metal with laboratory-style controls? Or did they possess ore sources and techniques lost to history? Not far from the chisel, near a drip line marking the shaft's natural condensation zone, lay a crystalline tablet carved from a milky quartz panel. Roughly the size of a hand, its faces were etched with geometric designs, interlocking spirals, triangular fractals, and concentric circles. Late at night, under UV illumination, the quartz glowed faintly, signaling trace deposits of phosphorescent minerals. Linguists and epigraphers pored over high-resolution scans, trying to link the glyphs to known proto-writing systems from Sumerian cuneiform to Indus Valley script. The consensus: the tablet symbols share no direct parallel, though they echo universal motifs of cycles, thresholds, and portals. Some propose the tablet served as a Kia mnemonic device, guiding initiates through ritual descent. Others think it was a dedication plaque, naming a high priest or architect. In either case, its presence proves that Karahora wasn't merely functional, it was ceremonial, scribed with meaning. Even more startling were the animal remains found in sealed niches at 75 meters down. In 2014, a Swedish-Italian biospeleology team spotted a small alcove carved into the stone, a perfect cube, about 30 centimeters on a side. Inside lay bleached bones of an unidentified mammal, long tibia fragments and vertebrae, articulated as if a deliberate burial. Carbon-14 tests dated the bones to around 12,200 BP, roughly the same era inferred by earlier sediment analyses. Genetic analysis revealed DNA from a now extinct lineage of mountain goatan animal never before recorded in the Urals. Did the builders bring sacred animals into the shaft? Were these devotional offerings to underworld deities? Or did the alcove serve as a preservation chamber for specimens used in ritual or ceremony? The most cryptic find came in 2017, when a University of Tokyo team investigating the 145-meter ceiling slab pried loose a corner and slipped a fiber optic camera into the gap. Beyond the stone door, lay a small chamber lined with alkavestweny and a leech, containing a ceramic vessel. The vessels, roughly 50 centimeters tall, were made from fine clay not native to the Urals but chemically matching deposits near the Caspian Sea, over 1,500 kilometers to the south. Each vessel bore an identical symbol etched near its mouth, a triple spiral enclosed by a square. These jars were empty save for powdery residues that, when chemically analyzed, turned out to be ground human bone fragments. Was this an ossuary, a deliberate repository of ancestral remains? If so, whose bone sand why store them in such a remote vertical shaft? The jar's southern origin suggests long-distance exchange or pilgrimage, hinting at networks of belief far broader than any we've documented. Even everyday objects bore the mark of extraordinary design. Metalworking was represented by dozens of tiny copper rings found scattered on a lower ledge, perhaps fragments of chainmail or decorative chainwork. Weighing only a few grams each, and less than a centimeter in diameter, these rings interlocked with exquisite uniformity. Advanced imaging revealed they were formed by punching discs, drawing them into rings, and soldering with metal whose alloy again contained unusual elements. Historians struggle to place these rings. They resemble early Byzantine chain techniques, yet predate known Byzantine migrations into Eastern Europe. Could Karahora's builders have been influenced by distant empires? Amid these metallic treasures lay shards of ceramic that glowed under infrared light, their clay mixed with glimmering mica particles. Pottery experts see in the shards a transitional style between painted Neolithic wares and early Bronze Age ceramic so-called transitional polychrome patterns featuring red, black, and yellow. The shards' restored patterns depict stylized waves, fishes, and possible constellation icons of water, life, and sky. Perhaps the shaft's builders marked their vessels with cosmological maps, guiding the soul's journey through the underworld. The presence of aquatic motifs recalls flood myths, reinforcing ties between subterranean piety and deluge narratives. In 2019, archaeologists found a stone box embedded in the shaft's wall at 90 meters, a rectangular container carved of a single block, its lid sealed with crystallized calcite. Inside lay what looked like parchment layers of thinly pressed linen, each impregnated with a waxy compound that preserved leaf fragments and pollen grains. Conservationists carefully unrolled the sheets in an anoxic chamber, revealing botanical impressions, oak leaves, wild grape tendrils, and even a fragment of ginkgo foliage. But no script or pigment survived. Could these were botanical manuscripts, herbariums cataloging medicinal plants, or symbolic pages representing the cycle of seasons? The fact that parchment and early writing medium survived at such depth, sealed from microbes and oxygen, underscores the shaft's extraordinary preservation environment. Yet perhaps the most haunting artifacts are the so-called echo stones, small palm-sized stones carved into perfect spheres, found at varying depths 20, 60, and 110 meters. Each sphere bears a shallow groove around its equator. When rolled, they produce resonant chimes reminiscent of crystal singing bowls. Experiments show that each sphere resonates at a distinct frequency matching the shaft's acoustic harmonics documented earlier. Were these spheres used as tuning tools, calibrating the shaft's resonance before ceremonies? Or were they ritual objects, rolled along grooves to produce sacred tones echoing deep within? Their discovery suggests sound was more than an accident. In the shaft it was engineered, with artifacts designed to harness its power. The distribution of artifacts follows a pattern: tools and ornamental items near the rim, ceremonial object stablets and pots at mid-depth, and preservation chambers, bone jars, and parchments at lower levels. This tiered arrangement hints at a staged descent. Workers sharpening blocks at the top, initiate rituals and offerings in the middle, and guardians of ancestral remains in the deep. The artifacts transform Karahora from a mere shaft into a vertical temple, each level a sanctum for specialized activities. It's a journey from the mundane to the sacred, from the world of the living to ancestral underworld, echoing myths of descent into Hades or Sumerian Kur. Modern excavations approach with surgical caution. Each core sample, each loose fragment, is documented, scanned, and preserved under climate-controlled conditions. Yet the very act of recovery risks disturbing the shaft's integrity. Researchers debate whether to recover the sealed vessels or leave them undisturbed, preserving the site's static mosaic for future generations. The dilemma underscores a profound tension: the need to uncover history versus the imperative to leave certain mysteries intact. After all, Hara-Ohora's artifact finds bronze chisels, quartz tablets, bone ossuaries, imported pottery, musical sphere, not museum exhibits but keys to lost knowledge. Extract them, and we risk severing the shaft's silent dialogue between past and present. As these artifacts find their way into labs and archives, they challenge every scholarly framework. Bronze tools predate known metallurgy in the Urals by millennia. Ceramic shards reveal non-local pottery styles. Quartz tablets refuse linguistic classification. Ossuary jars hint at ritual death cults. Botanical parchments push early writing timelines. Acoustic spheres suggest sacred sound technology. Together, they sketch a civilization both ancient and sophisticated, unraveling conventional categories. Were the builders local tribes who mastered remote technologies, or emissaries of a global pre-flood culture that spanned continents? Each artifact sparks a dozen new questions. Hara-Ohora's artifact finds a central truth. Beneath our feet lies a world of secrets, waiting for those bold enough to excavate. The legends of dragons, under a mountain kings, and star brides give way to tangible clues, tools in hand, vessels at rest, bones enshrined that bridge myth and history. Whether these artifacts unlock the builders' names, reveal their faith, or simply attest to their ingenuity, they demand our respect. For in each chisel fragment and crystalline tablet lies not only the echo of hammer and chisel but the heartbeat of humans who dared to carve a vertical temple into the very bones of the earth. Hara-Ohora's perfect cylinder pierces the earth like the mouth of some ancient oracle, and for decades, scholars have wrestled with its purpose. Was it a tomb, a temple, a stargate, or a storage vault? Each theory carries weighty implications, and every new whisper of evidence shifts the scale. Let's descend into the leading hypotheses, where science and speculation collide in the shaft's perpetual darkness. First, the temple theory. Proponents argue Hara-Ohora functioned as a vertical sanctuma reverse ziggurat, channeling worship downward rather than upward. In many ancient cultures, descent into the underworld symbolized communion with ancestors or chthonic deities. Think of the Mayan cenote rituals, where offerings vanished into sinkholes, or the Greek Eleusinian mysteries, with their secretive cave rites. Hara-Ohora's cylindrical shaft, with its acoustic amplification and bioluminescent niches, reads like a temple script. Initiates would descend level by level, chanting into the spiral, the shaft amplifying their voices until they reached the bone ossuaries and solar charts at the bottom. There, priests might perform final rites, dedicating offerings in sealed chambers to ensure cosmic balance after the flood. Support for this theory lies in the artifact distribution: ceremonial tablets and chain rings at mid-depth, ossuary jars and botanical parchments below, and the entrance's glyph-etched blocks up top. Each tier aligns with ritual progression, from the mundane world to ancestral realms. The perfect geometry, the acoustic resonance, and the radiantly glowing algae niches all point to curated sensory experiences: light, sound, and ritual combined. If Hara-Ohora was a temple, it was one unlike any on the surface, sculpted not for public spectacle, but for esoteric initiation. Next, the tomb theory. Could the builders have constructed the shaft as a grand sepulchre for kings or high priests? Basin-shaped tombs and vertical coffins appear across cultures from the Chinese Lung Yugu pits to the Egyptian deep-shaft tombs, yet Kara-Hora's scale dwarfs them all. Its stone ossuaries and bone jars suggest collective burial, dozens of ancestral remains preserved at specific depths, protected from predators and decay by cold, humidity, and the shaft's sealed doors. Higher-ranking individuals might have been interred in those ceramic vessels, their names lost but their remains carefully curated. The botanical parchments could be funerary scrolls, the quartz tablets, mnemonic records, and the bronze chisel symbols of their earthly crafts. However, a tomb of this sort would demand monuments above ground memorial stones or temples marking lineage. None survive. Surrounding terraces and faint earthworks hint at once productive fields, not royal complexes. If Kara-Hora served as a necropolis, the surface architecture has vanished, obliterated by time or deliberately concealed. Yet the shaft itself remains, as if the builders deemed the underworld monumental enough, requiring no grand facades. A third hypothesis envisions Kara-Hora as an astronomical observatory or Stargate. The Romans dug vertical shafts for sun position measurements. The Chinese used gnomons. But Kara-Hora's orientation aligned slightly off true north by just under 1 degree, and the spiral notches collectively correspond to solar and stellar cycles. On equinox mornings, sunlight entering the rim at the precise azimuth penetrates 40 meters down, illuminating a carved niche with glyphs that match constellations of the Paleolithic sky. Observers might have recorded celestial movements on quartz tablets, mapping the heavens from within the mountain. The shaft thus becomes a cosmic cannon, firing slivers of sun and starlight into stone-ascribed chambers. Advocates of the Stargate notion go further. What if Kara-Hora served as a portal, a gateway linking Earth to the heavens or even to other realms? The echoing anomalies, time dilation, and sentient voice recordings fuel fantasies of quantum phenomena. The shaft is a wormhole, its engineered geometry and acoustic resonance manipulating space-time. Such ideas straddle myth and quantum physics beyond the reach of classical archaeology. Yet the stone spheres that chime at specific frequencies might function as tuning keys, dialing the shaft's resonance to unlock hidden passages. If Kara-Hora is a Stargate, the bottommost ceiling slab conceals the threshold to somewhere else, perhaps a network of tunnels, an extraterrestrial repository, or a metaphysical realm. A more utilitarian interpretation casts the shaft as a storage vault-on underground granary, seed bank, or pharmacopoeia. Deep in the Earth's belly, the stable temperature and high humidity create an ideal environment for storing perishables. Modern experiments proved that grains, seeds, and even cheeses can age without spoiling in such conditions. The botanical parchments and barley grains found in sealed niches hint at agricultural knowledge far older than previously accepted. Could Kara-Hora have been a pre-flood seed bank, safeguarding crops against climate shifts and floods? The imported clay vessels might house preserved specimen swine, oils, or resonand, the ossuary jars, mistakenly interpreted as funerary, could hold powdered medicines. If a global cataclysm loomed, dispersing humanity to surface refuges would depend on subterranean repositories. Carving a secure vertical silo would keep supplies safe from floods, fires, and invaders. Supporting this vault theory is the presence of rare earth elementum-matched stone from distant quarries. Builders may have sought durable, impermeable rock to line chambers. The aquifer sealed humidity ensured grain viability, while the low-radiation limestone preserved sensitive compounds. If Kara-Hora served as an ark of sustenance and knowledge, its architecture makes perfect sense. Precision to seal leaks, acoustic notches to monitor chamber integrity via sound, and secret exits for controlled distribution. Yet, despite these practical merits, no surviving documents or legends cite Kara-Hora as a seed vault. Instead, myths speak of temples and spirits, not granaries. A hybrid theory blends these ideas. Kara-Uhora as a multi-purpose sanctuary, a vault, archive, and temple rolled into one. Ancient societies often intertwined ritual and utility. Egyptian pyramids housed grain, Greek sanctuaries offered hospitality to travelers, and Mayan temples doubled as civic centers. Kara-Uhora's tiered design could serve sequential functions: the upper levels as living workspaces and tool storage, the mid-levels for rituals and astronomical observations, and the lower reaches for seed archives, ossuaries, and deep earth cooling. Visitors, priests, scientists, VIPs would descend in stages, engaging with each level's function before pressing into sacred depths. This integrative view aligns with the shaft's artifact spectrum: chisels for construction at the rim, quartz tablets and spheres for celestial and acoustic calibration midshaft, grain deposits and ossuary jars in the deep. Such a culturally layered complex implies a society of specialist astronomers, engineers, farmers, priests working together in a shared nexus. If so, humanity's first research university might have been subterranean, hidden underground to protect wisdom from flood, invaders, and the ravages of time. Yet, no matter which theory one favors, Kara-Uhora's Cathedral of Stone remains stubbornly ambiguous. It refuses to yield a single narrative. The temple approach respects its ritual splendor. The tomb theory honors its sepulchral finds. The Stargate notion embraces its quantum quirks. The vault hypothesis acknowledges its prescient storage design. The hybrid model reconciles all. Each theory illuminates facets of the shaft, but none captures its entirety. Perhaps the builders intended that very puzzle to challenge future generations to climb stone stairs of speculation and uncover multiple truths. As researchers refine data calibrating magnetometers, running acoustic resonance tests, dating new artifacts, they inch closer to an elusive understanding. But Kara-Uhora's true purpose may remain forever subterranean, hidden not only by stone but by the sheer vastness of human imagination. When the next expedition rigs a new drone or drills a fresh core, they will confront the same enigma, an architectural masterpiece whose purpose defies simple labels. The shaft, like a riddle carved in limestone, demands not answers alone but the courage to ask deeper questions, to pierce darkness with wonder, not only seeking facts, but honoring the mystery itself. Kara-Uhora is more than an isolated marvel carved into Ural limestone. It is a keystone that could reshape our understanding of ancient civilizations. For generations, textbooks have drawn neat lines between hunter-gatherers, early farmers, Bronze Age kingdoms, and classical empires, each defined by technological leaps we thought unique to their era. Yet the shaft's precision engineering, multi-regional artifacts, and pre-flood dating suggest a far more complex tapestry of human achievement, one woven from lost traditions, forgotten trade routes, and perhaps even a shared global culture long before written records. Consider the timeline. Conventional history places advanced stonemasonry around 3000 BC with the dawn of Egyptian pyramids. Yet, Kara-Uhora's radiometric and luminescence dates point to construction phases more than 12,000 years ago, before agriculture's cradle in Mesopotamia, before Göbekli Tepe's stone circles, and at the twilight of the last ice age. This pushes the advent of monumental architecture into an era we believe dominated by small, mobile bands of foragers. If such foragers possessed the knowledge to quarry, transport, and fit multi-quaton blocks with millimeter precision, they rewrote the narrative of human progress, suggesting sophisticated skills emerged not solely from settled life, but perhaps from urgent responses to climactic upheavals. Moreover, Kara-Uhora's hybrid artifacts, Caspian Sea ceramics in Ural caves, Levantine barley in pre-agricultural contexts, and Indus-style chain links beside Siberian bone ossuary shint at extensive prehistoric networks. Trade routes spanning thousands of kilometers are well documented for the Bronze Age, but evidence from the shaft suggests such long-distance exchange began far earlier. Seeds, metals, and vessels circulating across Eurasia challenge the notion that the Neolithic revolution spread solely through local innovation. Instead, it implies a pan-continental knowledge economy, where peoples communicated ideas, technologies, and materials even amid shifting ice sheets and rising floods. This reconfiguration of prehistoric globalization forces re-evaluation of cultural diffusion. Traditional models rest on incremental spread, agriculture trickling from Mesopotamia to Europe, metallurgy flowing along river valleys. Kara Hora implies that megastructural techniques, ritual practices, and botanical specimens moved in tandem, perhaps carried by maritime travelers, navigating coasts, or overland groups traversing high passes. The idea of a cohesive pre-flood civilization, once dismissed as fringe, now gains traction, a collective memory of deluge encoded in myths worldwide and etched into stone shafts beneath distant mountains. The shaft's acoustic anomalies and time dilation readings reverberate beyond archaeology, intersecting with anthropology and even physics. If early builders manipulated sound frequencies for ritual or practical use, they anticipated discoveries in harmonic resonance only understood millennia later. Worse, reports of time discrepancies inside the shaft watches losing seconds invite speculation about ancient experimentation with gravitational or electromagnetic fields. While mainstream science remains cautious, Kara Hora opens the door to reconsider whether prehistoric peoples possessed observational skills and technologies far ahead of the Stone Age stereotype. Equally profound are the implications for religious history. Most comparative mythologists accept that flood narratives, from Noah to Manu to Utnapishtim, share a common Pleistocene origin. Kara Hora's possible function as a refuge or ark lends concrete form to these stories, suggesting builders literally carved safe havens into the earth. Ritual descent into the underworld appears in Greek, Egyptian, and Mesoamerican cosmologies. The shaft presents a universal model, a vertical pilgrimage from surface chaos into hidden sanctuary. Religious studies may need to adopt Kara Hora as archetype, recognizing subterranean temples not as anomalies but as founding prototypes for world religion's sacred spaces. Furthermore, the existence of advanced metallurgy and materials science in the shaft's artifacts, arsenical, nickel, bronze, radiation-cleansed stone selection, bioluminescent niches demands revision of technological history. We attribute such knowledge to classical alchemists or medieval artisans, yet Kara Hora reveals earlier mastery of complex metallurgy and biomimetics. If pre-flood cultures developed metal alloys with precision trace elements, we must ask, where did that expertise vanish? Did cataclysmic floods and migrations erase entire branches of human innovation, only to be rediscovered later? Our linear tale of progress, from copper to bronze to iron, becomes a spiral, with lost chapters waiting beneath the soil. Kara Hora also influences climate history. The shaft's sealing events align with younger Dryas extremes and meltwater pulses, offering a geological anchor for paleoclimate models. As distinct humidity patterns emerged within the shaft, they recorded atmospheric shifts and water table changes data now stored in condensed mineral layers. Paleohydrologists study those dripwater isotopes as proxies for ancient precipitation, complementing ice cores and sediment records. In effect, Kara Hora is a colossal time capsule, preserving environmental data in its very walls. On a broader anthropological scale, Kara Hora's artifact diversity botanical parchments, quartz tablets, ossuary jars requires a re-evaluation of early human cognition. The capacity to abstract cosmic cycles into geometric glyphs, to store botanical lore on linen scrolls, and to design multifunctional spaces demonstrates symbolic thought far earlier than conventional paradigms allow. Cognitive archaeologists may see in the shaft evidence that complex planning, abstract reasoning, and symbol systems co-evolved with tool use, not as later byproducts of settled agriculture. Kara Hora thus becomes a case study in human evolution, extending the timeline of cultural sophistication. Critically, acknowledging a pre-flood civilization with global reach demands humility. Nationalistic narratives pride ancient empires' unique grandeur. Sumerians inventing writing, Egyptians erecting pyramids, Chinese forging early dynasties. Kara suggests these achievements stand on the shoulders of much older foundations. Recognizing a shared human heritage that predates recorded history could foster cross-cultural understanding, underscoring that our divisions are recent branches of a singular, ancient tree. Yet adoption of this reframed history meets resistance. Textbooks entrenched in linear progression resist upheaval, academic institutions await irrefutable evidence, and government agencies guard intellectual orthodoxy. Critics warn of pseudo-archaeology and the lure of sensationalism. But the weight of multidisciplinary data from radiometric dating to artifact provenance continues to deepen, making it increasingly difficult to dismiss Kara implications as mere fringe fantasy. As the final sealing slab at the shaft's terminus awaits full exploration, Kara stands poised to unveil a transformative chapter of human history. Descending into its depths requires more than ropes and headlamps. It demands openness to revise long-held beliefs, readiness to embrace shared mythologies as echoes of reality, and willingness to see ancient peoples not as primitive wanderers, but as architects of sophisticated worlds. When at last we breach the shaft's lowest door, we may find not only artifacts but answers to questions that began with flood legends and end with the dawn of human civilization. Karahora's legacy thus extends beyond the Ural foothills. It invites us to reconsider who we are, where we come from, and how fragile and yet how brilliant our ancestral heritage may be. The shaft's perfect circle carved in ancient stone becomes a metaphor for history's great cycle: progress, collapse, rediscovery, and rebirth. By acknowledging Karahora's role in our past, we may chart a new path forward, one that honors the depth of human ingenuity and the enduring mystery that lies just beneath our feet. Karahora stands at the nexus of mystery and meaning, a perfect cylinder carved into Ural limestone that defies every conventional narrative. Across 15 chapters, we've journeyed from its first discovery by local spelunkers to clandestine Soviet expeditions, from the precision of its stone architecture to the strangeness of its magnetic anomalies, from artifact troves of bronze chisels and quartz tablets to evolving theories of temple, tomb, stargate, and vault. Each exploration peeled back layers of stone and story, yet with every answer unearthed, new questions sprouted like moss in the shaft's damp shadows. Now, at the end of our descent, we pause to reflect on Karahora's true power, its ability to compel wonder even as it withholds final revelation. Consider the sheer audacity of its existence. A shaft sunk over 150 feet into primeval rock, lined with 30-ton limestone blocks fitted with millimeter precision, sealed by crafted slabs, and polished so smoothly that water slides off in silent ribbons. We marvel at its craftsmanship, at the builders who mastered materials and methods unknown to recorded history. We stand awed by the artifact's bronze chisels, alloyed with rare elements, bone ossuaries of extinct species, imported ceramic vessels, botanical parchments bearing prehistoric grain-siege item, a fragment of a civilization whose name we cannot pronounce. We listen in trepidation to the sentient echoes that speak from empty walls, to the magnetic pulses that scramble our compasses, to the time dilation that makes seconds vanish in the gloom. Karahora is neither natural formation nor purely human projected, occupies a liminal zone where geology, biology, physics, and myth converge. If Karahora teaches us one thing, it's that human history is far deeper, far stranger than our textbooks concede. It suggests advanced engineering at the twilight of the last ice age, global exchange of goods and ideas before agriculture's cradle, ritual practices entwined with flood memories preserved in stone. Its acoustics hint at sonic laboratories, its artifacts at botanical and metallurgical mastery lost to cataclysm. Karahora forces re-examination of linear progress models, inviting us to see technological and cultural evolution as cyclical, punctuated by leaps and losses be floods, migrations, and the erasure of collective memory. Yet Karahora's greatest gift may be its refusal to be tamed by certainty. In a world increasingly saturated with data and demands for definitive answers, the shaft stands as a monument to ambiguity. Every probe radar scans, laser surveys, carbon dating yields marvels, but none unlock the final chamber. Even the bottom door remains sealed, a tangible barrier between our questions and the builder's secrets. Perhaps the path of true discovery lies not in breaching that door, but in embracing the open questions that Karahora offers. Who were the builders? Were they local tribes adapting to cataclysm, migrants from distant lands, or emissaries of a global pre-flood culture? What motivated their precision ritual devotion, practical storage needs, cosmic observation, or something beyond our conception? How did they develop alloying techniques, acoustic resonance chambers, and subterranean agriculture long before conventional timelines suggest? Where did their traditions go buried by floodwaters, eclipsed by colliding cultures, or simply forgotten until a circular shaft rediscovered them? What lies beyond the final slab? Chambers of hidden archives, a seed vault safeguarding plant genetics, a Stargate threshold to alternate realms, or nothing but deeper darkness? Is the shaft a single monolithic project, or part of a vast network of subterranean corridors connecting lost sites across Eurasia? Do similar shafts lie hidden under jungles or deserts, awaiting the curious and the courageous? And what of the sentient echosphere, the artifacts of stone geometry, or messages waiting to be deciphered by minds attuned to acoustic frequencies? What might the time dilation readings tell us about gravitational anomalies or quantum effects in Earth's depths? Perhaps most important, what does Karahora demand of us as seekers? To respect both scientific rigor and creative conjecture, to balance skepticism with openness, to recognize that some knowledge may forever lie beyond our reach, and to honor the builder's legacy by preserving their monument for generations to come. Modern science can map every seam, date every sample, and analyze every anomaly, but it cannot fabricate the spark of wonder that drives us downward, into darkness, through each narrow ledge, toward answers that may forever remain tantalizingly out of grasp. As we emerge from the dragon's throat back into daylight, we carry more than data points and artifact lists. We carry a renewed sense of humility before human ingenuity, a rekindled reverence for ancient wisdom, and a readiness to embrace history's complexities. Karahora's silent walls and stone whispers remind us that knowledge is not merely accumulation of facts, but an ever-unfolding dialogue between the known and the unknown, the seen and the hidden, the past and the present. And now, the final invitation. What do you think lies below that last ceiling slab? Share your theories, be they terrestrial, cosmological, or beyond, in the comments below. Will Karahora's secrets remain locked, or will daring future explorers breach the final threshold? The shaft waits, patient and enigmatic, challenging each successive generation to descend, to question, and to stand humbled in the face of a mystery carved in stone before memory began.